So hey guys, this is your favorite fictional vortex. So in this video, we will see what if Naruto had devil blood and become a prince of hell. But before we start, remember to subscribe and like this video. Now let's start. The village hidden in the leaf was in a state of utter panic and chaos. The village looked as if it was engulfed by hell itself. All hell had broken loose when they had to suddenly defend themselves against a monstrosity the likes of which they could not be prepared for, bared down upon them in the form of the mighty Kyuubi no Yoko, the strongest of the 9 great Biju. There it stood with its 9 long tails, gigantic paws and muscle, its sharp teeth glinting under the full moon and its blood-red eyes lit with a mixture of anger and curiosity. It let out a roar as the forest set alight. It was hell as the beast tore them to shreds with but a flick of its tails. "Damn! We getting massacred out here," yelled a Junin as the beast sent out another blast of chakra, taking the form of flames as it engulfs more buildings and trees, luckily devoid of civilians. "Quickly get the wounded out of there. We have to hold out till Yondaime-sama can get here." The Junin bared at another Chunin that was the only thing keeping their hopes up. Hope that their leader will pull through and find a way to stop this monster. "Kami-sama. We can't take much more of this. Hurry your ass up, Minato. We need your help now." Those were the thoughts of Sarutobi Hiruzen, former Hokage, as he helped his village hold off the beast. Hokage Tower. The youthful visage of Minato Namikaze was etched in a scowl, holding his contempt and sadness at the current situation. They only received word a few hours ago of the Biju coming to attack them, and what little defenses they could put up was crushed by the beast. Now a tenth of their village lie in ruins and his shinobi were being killed faster than an Uzumaki ate ramen. Minato knew that there was only one way of stopping the beast, and that was sealing it away. That was what he needed to do, but that was easier said than done. For instance, the only seal powerful enough to seal the beast was deadly. Shiki Fuin, the Reaper Death Seal. If using it you summon death itself to help create a powerful seal. The cost is one's life and soul, so he won't be surviving this plan. Then there's the container, which had to be a newborn child, and only 3 were being born this night, which just with luck were his because his wife had just gone into labor a few hours ago. He was having triplets, a boy and 2 girls. His wife would be bringing their children, Naruto, Nariko and Nanami, into this world. He absolutely hated being in his position now. He would have to subject 2 of his children to the life of a Jinchuriki. A truly dangerous file filled with conflict. The heavy heart he bore, even knowing he had no choice, was almost too much for him to bear. If he wasn't going to die, his wife would surely rectify that. A cold shiver ran down his back. "Hokage-sama." He looked towards his office door to see a man toss it open, a doctor out of breath, unable to get the words out of what he had to say, but he didn't have to. Minato knew his children were born. "It's time," were his last thoughts before leaving. Hospital. Kushina Namikaze looked down, smiling at the 3 bundles in her arms. On her right was little Naruto, who was almost the splitting image of his father, with blonde locks strewn about his little head. The only thing that he had of hers, though, was her beautiful violet amethyst eyes, but his were practically glowing like gems from what little glimpses she was able to get from them during his short life, and had whisker marks on each cheek from being exposed to the yokai hours earlier when she first went into labor, and his sisters also had them. In the middle was little Nariko, who, like her Aniki, she also looked a bit like their father, with blonde hair, only she had a few red streaks, and she had navy blue eyes a few shades darker than their father's. On her left was little Nanami, who, like her sister, had both blonde and red hair, only she had more red than blonde, and had identical eyes like their father. Both girls had quite a bit of energy from how long it took for them to go sleep. The 3 babies stirred uneasily, and she could tell why. The Kyuubi's malice could even be felt from here. "Shish, it's all right, little ones, mommy's here, she'll protect you. She won't let anything happen to you, my little angels." The babies settled down, soothed by the voice and love of their mother. Despite seeming calm and joyful, Kushina was anything but the emotions she was showing. In this situation she was fearful. Their home was under the assault by a monster. Kushina was a powerful ninja in her own right. She had earned her nickname as the Red Death throughout her ninja career. But even she, in a rank bordering on S-rank ninja, wouldn't want any part in fighting such a powerful creature. She only prayed her husband would find a way to stop the crisis. The door opened and in came a figure that was a sight for sore eyes. Wearing his own fragile smile, just like the one she knew she was wearing, was her husband. Minato. He came up beside her, all the while his eyes reflected affection for her and their children. "Aren't they beautiful?" asked Kushina. They perfect, was the loving response she got from her husband. They then spent a few moments just watching as the children slept. To them it was a fleeting vision of perfection that made them feel fulfilled. But Minato knew he would have to ruin this moment of peace for the sake of his home. Kushina, he called. The said woman looked at her husband, hearing the pain in his voice. I'm going to have to use that seal. I'm going to have to use the Shiki Fuin to seal the fox. As a response, his wife could only gasp after she got a hold of herself. No, I will not have you use our babies for that, never. Minato sighed. He knew this was going to happen despite them both being masters of Fuinjutsu. Therefore easily able to figure out what must be done, his wife would deny the necessity of making a Jinchuriki. She always was the hopeful and dreaming one out of the two of them, while he took up the job of the realist. We have no choice, nothing else can stop it, we have to do this for the sake of the village and our children. At this his wife's face twisted in pain, like the thought of it caused her physical pain, and she started crying. Then why do you have to die? She looked up with a tear-stained face. Why do our babies have to grow up without their two-san? Minato himself had to hold in his own tears as he answered his wife's question. Because it is my duty as Hokage and a father. Kushina lowered her head in resignation. Minato then took his daughters and said a parting word to his wife and son before proceeding to walk out the room. Normally he would have hurried away, but it just didn't feel right at the moment, and as he walked away he heard his wife say, I love you. Battlefield. Hold it off, was the cry of the shinobi as they fought the mighty fox. They had managed to get it all the way to the edge of the village thanks to their previous Hokage showing them just way he was, and still is called Shinobi no Kami. Suddenly there was a pillar of smoke and Gamabuda the chief toad attacked the fox, pushing it back even more. The crowd cheered for their Hokage. Though Sarutobi knew what was happening by the bundles in Minato's arms. He knew he was still needed, and he only hoped his wife and children would forgive him for what he was about to do. He called Kakashi, who was still fresh for battle because he was kept back because of his age. So he made his way to Gamabuda. Minato, let me do the sealing. You have so much you still have to do, Sarutobi said, trying to make the younger man change his mind. However, Minato shook his head, stating that he was the Hokage and he had to do this himself, and the two men bowed their heads, but a split second later Sarutobi appeared behind him and knocked him out, taking the girls from his arms. Kakashi, keep him safe while I finish. Tell my wife and kids I'm sorry. The young man could only nod, still shocked about all of this. While Hiruzen summoned Enma the Monkey King, who said his goodbyes to his old friend. Sarutobi soon summoned the Shinigami, the Lord of Death, who quickly understood what he was supposed to do, while the fox suddenly calmed down as if understanding what was going to happen and was allowing it to happen, as if it had a choice in the matter at all. Fuin, with that cry a great white flash happened, and when it was gone the fox was no longer in sight, and the two girls had two seals, one on each of their stomachs. As they cried being woken up, a great man had fallen and lay still on the ground. Enma gave a pained sigh, letting a single tear fall before going back to his own world to mourn. Meanwhile Minato Namikaze began to stir as he woke up, being held up by his student just in time to see the Enma disappear. He saw Sarutobi's unmoving form and the absence of the Kyuubi, and he put two and two together and jolted from where he was being supported. He ignored his student calling him and rushed to where the two girls. The deed was done and he could not change it, so he picked up his daughters and looked down at the third's still form. Thank you, were the last words he spoke to the man who just saved his life. Hospital. Kushina Namikaze saw the end to the fighting and realized what that must have meant, as was the evidence of her crying. Just then the door opened up and she saw someone she did not think of ever seeing again, her husband holding their daughters in his arms. Her crying stopped as he walked up to her, neither doing anything, as they looked awkwardly at each other, neither knowing what to do, until Kushina laughed and engulfed her husband and daughters in her arms, holding their children between them as they cried tears of joy. Their family was not destroyed. Later a village meeting was held early in the morning. Minato stood holding his daughters while a little ways back Kushina held their son Naruto. Good people of the Leaf, I know you all are in pain now with the loss of so many and the destruction brought about by the Kyuubi, but please do not sadden. We have survived thanks to the sacrifice of so many, and we have made it through to a new day, and we can rebuild what we lost. At this the crowd cheered from the conviction in their leader's voice. In fact, I hold here in my arms two heroes, along with the help of the late Sandaime Hokage, who gave his life to save this village by sealing the yin and yang into these two girls, my daughters Noriko and Nanami Namikaze. At this the people broke into another cheer, not doubting the words of their cage, even though a few that did were pulled into the shadows and had it beaten into them. Later that night, Minato and Kushina watched their children sleep in their crib cuddling with each other. For them this was the perfect moment in all their lives. Finally everything was perfect. For them nothing could ruin this for them. Little did they know certain things will change everything and only destruction would await if things went down a bad path. Life was a bitch and they were about to learn it was always the calm before the storm. It had been quite a few years since the fox attacked the village. The people of Konoha still mourned the dead but they already started rebuilding their village and by now the village was back in top notch, especially with their trade line in Nami no Kuni. Everything was going so well this went double for the Namikaze family. Namikaze compound. Currently Kushina was watching over the three kids while they each did their own things while she was sitting with Makoto Uchiha, her best friend since the academy. Meanwhile Makoto's sons were also there seated with them watching the three other children. Kushina-chan, your kids sure are energetic. I almost feel sorry for you but then again they inherit that from you. Although Naruto-kun seems a bit out of place rather choosing to sit under a tree and read. He's such a quiet child, he reminds me of Itachi-chan being so mature. I bet you proud of him, Makoto stated in a happy tone. While Itachi sighed, his mother was just so blunt. Well Makoto-chan, he has always been so quiet and he always head stuffed in books. Honestly dunno what to do anymore. Even Minato wasn't this quiet when he was younger, for once I wish he could maybe communicate more with his sisters. Kushina sighed in exasperation, which the other woman looked confused at. Why? Does Minato feel the same way? Doesn't he communicate well with them? I know Itachi-chan was like him a little but he knew how to communicate with his cousins at least. Asked Makoto wearing a frown on her face. Meanwhile, although Itachi wasn't one for trouble and eavesdropping, he couldn't help listening in on his mother's conversation with the Udime's wife on the 4-year-old boy who sat in the shade of a tree a little ways from where they sat, with a book in his hands. It's not that he doesn't communicate well with them because he does, it's just ever since he could talk properly he always complains when one or both of his sisters sleep next to him. He always says it hurts or it burns but the doctors say he's fine. I can't help but think maybe he doesn't like his sisters. This was said with a tone of hurt by Kushina and Makoto frowned more. I don't believe this, there's something else at play here. I've seen the boy's eyes every time he looks at them. There's nothing but love and kindness in those amethyst eyes of his. While Makoto thought upon this, Itachi had similar thoughts. Something's just not right here. Itachi's own thoughts were also analyzing the situation and he knew what it was. It was on the tip of his tongue but he just couldn't get it. Meanwhile young Naruto sat under the tree reading up on advanced chakra manipulation. Chakra can sometimes change forms when trying to shape it. Firstly you need an understanding of how it works and what makes chakra up and how it can be broken down. So Kushina-chan has Minato and you started with their training? I know Sasuke started his training just a week ago and he's coming along nicely. Makoto asked trying to lighten up the mood and Kushina nodded. Yes we have. Minato decided he was going to train them in ninjutsu, chakra control and taijutsu, while I train them in fuinjutsu, genjutsu and kenjutsu and we'll both be training them in weapons. Kushina said brightening up with a grin. Wow. Well how far are they with it? I'm sure they all took to fuinjutsu like fish to water. This however Makoto found was not the right thing to say as this brought Kushina to frown deeply. When it comes to ninjutsu, the girls excels, learning at a quick rate while Naruto also excels in it. He doesn't get it down as fast as they do. However when it comes to chakra control he is leaps and bounds in front of them because their control sucks. Then there's taijutsu. The girls are great because of their physical condition but Naruto, while he is very good for his age, he just never wins against them. Again the girls suck at fuinjutsu and genjutsu which he excels at and the same with taijutsu could be said about kenjutsu, but I'm proud of my girls. At this Makoto once again frowned at Kushina. Can't see her son as a genius and a hard worker. Makoto thought shaking her head slowly at her best friend. One day Kushina-chan this is going to come back and bite you. Meanwhile Itachi was shocked and impressed. The 4-year-old was very smart and he found himself all the more curious about this child. A month later, Naruto walked down the street of Konoha on his way to buy some ice cream from one of the stands to cheer him up also as a reward for a chakra control exercise that he learned all by himself. As he patted his wallet Panther-chan he couldn't help but think about all the changes with his ninja training during the past month and he frowned. Chu-san, Ka-chan. Why do you favor Nariko-chan and Nanami-chan more than me? This was his thoughts as he thought about the past month. Flashback. A day after Makoto and Dato and Kushina called a meeting in Naruto, Nariko and Nanami sat side by side on the couch before their parents. Alright kids. Your Ka-san and I have decided to change your training a bit. Firstly, we decided to hold off Fuinjutsu, Genjutsu and chakra control for a few more years. Another thing we have decided, since the girls hold the Kyuubi's chakra, they had to be trained first, so Naruto, we won't carry on training you until you all start the academy. Minato said happily, even though he just unknowingly hurt his only son by doing that, but the girls cheered and Kushina smiled, but Naruto frowned deeply. Ka-chan, Chu-san, how come the things I'm really good at are put on hold, and why is my training on hold just because the girls hold the Kyuubi's chakra? Why not hold off on the things that they excel in? Naruto asked, wearing the same deep frown, not understanding why his parents would stunt his growth. Naruto Namikaze, stop being so selfish. We are doing this because your sisters need it more. And they will be targets. Kushina said in a disapproving tone, scolding her son, while Minato frowned at Naruto and the girls grinned. But Ka-san, what about me? Naruto never got to finish as his mother yelled for him to shut up and go to his room and not come down until she told him to, because she wasn't gonna tolerate any back chatting. So he dutifully got up, ignoring his sister's looks of satisfaction, and went to his room and cried himself to sleep. The following weeks were hell for him, because every time his sisters made sure to get him into trouble, and their parents didn't believe when he said something and his sisters said differently. End of flashback. Naruto was so consumed by his thoughts he never noticed the old lady walking in front of him. Meanwhile, Elder Katsume Kurama of the Kurama clan was taking a stroll around the village to stretch a bit. The elder was currently dressed in what seemed to be a brown traditional kimono with a dark pink obi with white petals decorating it at the sleeves and bottoms. Her gray, brown hair was pinned up in a bun and her honey-colored eyes shone with happiness. Oof. Who the heck do you think you were bumping into? Oh, it's just a brat, the Kurama huffed and was about to carry on walking, that is, until... Hey, what's that supposed to mean? Naruto shouted in a burst of rare childishness, momentarily forgetting about apologizing to his elders. That young man was supposed to mean you just a snot-nosed brat, and you have no right to speak to your elders in that manner. Especially a clan elder of the Kurama clan. Elder Katsume barked at the 4-year-old boy, with a twinkle of amusement shining in her eyes. While Naruto just realized he was shouting at an elder and took a step back before bowing low to the woman. I'm so sorry, Elder-san. It was wrong and unjust to speak in the manner of which I have. And I should not have done so, but I was so unfocused and in my own thoughts. Please let me make it up to you. These were Naruto's words as he bowed, and the elder put on a thoughtful face as the boy looked up at her with his amethyst eyes. Alright. Now we are talking. How about I some dango? Then I'll share my wisdom with your young mind. Sounds fair enough? Katsume spoke with a glimmer of curious mischief. Yes, Elder-san. That sounds fair enough. Naruto replied, happy that he won't get into trouble, and perhaps get some advice on genjutsu from this woman. After all, she came from the Kurama clan, and by the way she dressed you could tell she's one of their elders. So slowly the two made their way to the dango stand. You can cut the crap with Elder-san. The name's Katsume Kurama. And you a brat? She asked him, and he paid for the dango they bought. Naruto Namikaze. Elder, I mean Katsume-san. Came the response, and now know who she was talking to. She let out a small laugh but also grew curious. Say brat, I bet Hokage-sama and his wife has already started with your training, right? Which category do you excel in? She asked, not caring about clan stuff. She was never one for technicalities. Yes, they have, but, well, I guess I excel in Fuinjutsu, Genjutsu, chakra control and Kenjutsu, Naruto said with a slightly sad tone, which made Katsume raise a brow, surprise and impression but also confusion. Really? I'm sure your training is going well then, she said, chewing on her dango with hawk-like eyes that only a trained ninja could. Actually, I was going to ask you for some tips on genjutsu because my family, you see, they more busy training my sisters, and so my training was put on hold, but I still want to train, and I know you from the Kurama clan too. Naruto trailed off, having the decency to look ashamed, but there was a bitter glint in his eyes which darkened ever so slightly. What he said sent Katsume for a loop. Were his parents playing favorites? This left a funny taste in her mouth. Well, if that's the case, I suppose I can give you some advice on that subject, but first, how much do you know about genjutsu? At this she watched as his eyes lit up like a kid at a toy store. Genjutsu is mostly to do with the mind and causes one's mind to hallucinate and is mostly used to distract the enemy to take them out of battle quickly and is not something used by many ninjas. Naruto said this with confidence. While Katsume smiled, not many children outside of our clan knows that. You know what, brat? I like you. Good job. Yes, that's what Genjutsu is, but Genjutsu is not like all the others. This is more like an art than anything else because it's only as good as the caster's imagination and willpower, therefore why many people can only do the simplest Genjutsus and don't study further into it. Genjutsu is something that you can't really master because of the limitless opportunities there are. In my clan, for one, we all study the art of Genjutsu and it runs through our veins to know the hows and whys of it. However, every decade there is someone born within our clan who can not only use illusions, but the illusions they use can cause physical damage to the body. See where I'm going with this? Genjutsu is something that can't be taught by someone, it's something you make from scratch. Therefore Genjutsu is the ultimate jutsu which depends on the person's control, will and imagination. Katsume told him, which he sat wide-eyed with awe and wonder, so she mentally gave herself a pat on her back, thinking it was the same conversation she had with her granddaughter, Yakumo, a few months ago. Wow. Do you think I can become a Genjutsu specialist? He asked hopeful, and she just chuckled at him. He was one interesting brat, perhaps she could help him out just a little. Yup, if you practice hard enough and have the determination and imagination for it, I'm sure you can become a master in your own way. No doubt about it. She said this while ruffling his hair a little, and he beamed up at her. Well, brat. It's time I get home. I still have a granddaughter to talk to. It was nice meeting you. Good luck and thanks for the dango. The elderly woman said before getting up and walking away, not before she left a plain-looking scroll in his hands. Naruto looked at the scroll in his hands and read the title. Iryujan Gijutsu. Shen, illusion technique. Chains. A huge smile flashed across his face and he ran out the stand and seen the lady in a distance. Thank you. He yelled to her and she turned around, flashing him a peace sign before walking on her way back to her clan compound, leaving Naruto to stare after her. 2 months later, after meeting Katsume Kurama, it seemed to Naruto that was where his luck stopped, as not even a day later he drew a picture of his family and left to use the toilet, only to come back and see his parents praising Noriko about his picture that she claimed was hers, and because he confronted her about it he got punished by picking weeds for the next 2 days. Then Nanami breaks their mother's vase because she was running and he gets blamed for it just because he was there, and they didn't believe him, so he was punished once again because Noriko and Nanami can do no wrong at all. Of course things looked like they were looking up for him when he found his father's Fuinjutsu book and decided to keep it, and he was coming along nicely for being self-taught. I mean, how many 4-year-olds can say they know how to make storage seals? Though it seemed to him that his sisters were trying to make his life a living hell, and throughout the past 2 months he found himself being excluded from curtain activities or being punished and called a liar. It had become so bad that for the first time Kushina raised her hand and brought it down on her own son, all things that left him bitter and hurt. He had slowly come to hate his sisters, especially since the past month was their birthday and the girls banned the other clan children from being friends with him. Flashback. It was their 5th birthday today and he felt like nothing could bring down his happy mood today. Things were finally looking up for him. Oh, how wrong he had been. How very wrong. Outside. Everyone. I have an announcement to make. Firstly, thank you for coming. And then secondly, Nanami and I are banning anyone who wants to be friends with us to be friends with Naruto because he's mean. Noriko stated, clapping her hands together with Nanami at her side, nodding in conviction. The other kids all looked confused at this but walked over to the girls, even though some threw apologetic looks while he looked hurt and confused. He didn't say or do anything to them. End of flashback. That had been truly hurtful and sad for the blonde. Currently the girls and Naruto were unpacking the groceries for their mother as she went back to the market for something she forgot. Suddenly, out of pure reflexes, he pulled Noriko out the way as a kunai embedded itself into the wall and a ninja with the headband for Iwa with a slash across it appeared and started chasing the 3 of them, who were now running almost to the gates of the compound. Both girls were so scared that they tripped and fell. This made Naruto turn back for them and he took 2 kunais for them. He turned around just as the shinobi brought down his kunai to cut the blonde. Naruto, who was running on adrenaline, ran through seals as fast as he could and set the genjutsu he had been working on for the past month on the shinobi, who stopped dead in his tracks and fell to the ground. Just as Naruto passed out, he could only think one thing before joining his sisters, who were both unconscious from shock. Ten no Shogai no Rikuin success. heaven's false paradise.
But of course when they woke up everyone had come to a conclusion that the fox cast the genjutsu on the man to protect itself, and once again his sisters took his credit because of the fox. This had left him bitter and angry, and for the first time he could honestly say he hated his sisters with all his being.
However, something far worse was going to happen, which would just nail the coffin shut and completely destroy this so-called happy family. All this would soon take place on the triplets' 7th birthday. Soon a legend would be born and a prophecy would come to play which will leave earth-shattering revelations.
The sun slowly made its way into the sky and was shining, as people and shinobi started about with business. After all, they had a festival to set up because today it was the day the Sandame defeated the Kyuubi and sealed it into the Udame's daughters. It was also their birthday as well, and many people bought a gift for each girl.
Hospital. 10th floor. Head medic's office. Humph. Shizune. Come look at all these people. Walking around without a care. Buying gifts for those two brats. This was stated by a blonde-headed woman who looked to be only in her early 30s. Her honey golden brown eyes narrowed in contempt at the villagers as a black-headed woman walked in the office. Her dark brown, almost black-eyed held the same emotions. Hi. Tsunade-sama. It's as if they forget the Udame has a son too. It's honestly shameful. Those girls think they will be able to outshadow Naruto. Oh Tuto, they have another thing coming.
He is so much better than them. How Hokage-sama and Kushina-san can't see this is beyond me.
Jiraiya-sama is even ashamed. He said every time he tries to include Naru-chan, they either get distracted by the girls or they brush it off and say Naruto's too busy stuffing his heads in books and pranking people.
Even when we say he's not like that, they always saying he's my son, I should know. Yet they know nothing about him. Poor Naruto-kun. If I didn't still think they loved him a little, I'd say they'd forget him one day, and I doubt things would be the same again. Even while Shizune said this, it was like fate was laughing at her, because soon she and everyone would find out just how true her words were and how it would soon bring about changes, and big ones too.
Tsunade sat with a cup of sake in her hand, twirled it around. If Shizune and her weren't so busy with the research lab today, they would sure go over to get Naruto, who she saw as a son, and celebrate with him. However, this was called in as an emergency that couldn't wait. She looked over at the cupboard on the side. Inside she had put the gifts Shizune and she bought for him. Maybe when they got out this hospital later today, she'll drop them off with an apology. I wish we weren't called into the research department today. We could have celebrated with Naruto. Tsunade sighed when she said this, and Shizune suddenly looked downtrodden before shaking her head. Well, let's get going. The earlier we start, the earlier we get to see Naruto-chan, Shizune said with conviction as she pumped her fist into the air, and you could practically see the stars in her eyes. Tsunade grinned. Hi. Let's go, Shizune. Shocking Shizune out of her mental state, the two left the office with the hope of seeing their surrogate son and brother. Unknown to them, the next time they saw him they would shed tears of horror and sadness. Namikaze compound. Minato and Kushina lie asleep on their bed. Well, they were asleep until the door was roughly tossed open. With the slamming noise and the two yells of Ka-san and Tu-san, the parents were rudely awoken. Good morning, my angels. What do we owe the pleasure of this visit? Minato's annoyance was covered up nicely. After all, who likes being rudely awoken? Especially when dreaming of making his family bigger. Tu-san. You promised to take us to all our friends, then go to the festival. Nanami's whiny voice was heard loud and clear as if speaking in a microphone, and Minato and Kushina inwardly flinched.
Yeah, Ka-san. Can we go now, please? Nariko, with her apparently adorable puppy dog eyes, quickly took her parents in the palm of her hands. With that, the two girls had them and almost everyone else wrapped around their pinky.
Meanwhile, in another room not too far down from their parents' room, on a small bed lay Naruto, who was still asleep, and the reason for this was that he had stayed up the whole night working on a new genjutsu that could make him invisible to the world, and that everyone will forget about him, well, except the people who actually care for him. All the while Nariko and Nanami dragged their parents out the house. When they were done, Naruto slowly came to when the front door closed. Ah! Stupid Naruto. Don't stay up so late, especially when the next day is your birthday. Tsunade Ka-san would have your hide for this. Oh. Wait a minute. Naruto, who was ranting and raving, suddenly realized the front door had banged shut, which had awoken him. Naruto ran to the cold window that had frost on it just to see his sisters and parents walking away from the house all dressed up in nice warm mittens and scarves around their necks. He was shocked. Did they forget about him? Why were they leaving him at home? How could they be so cruel? Without knowing it, he had lost all sense and started running down the stairs on the cold wooden floor before tossing the door open and running out of the house.
Meanwhile, Minato and Kushina were already almost out the gates without paying any attention to the surroundings, and only Onwai stepped out the compound gates. That's when Minato and Kushina activated the seals on the compound. Not knowing this would be their biggest mistake ever.
With Naruto, he ran and ran with his left arm braced in front of him, getting ready to push open the compound gates that just shut. Unknown to him, or maybe at the moment he forgot that there were seals on the gate. The minute his hand touched the just activating seals, a chakra surge happened in the gate's seals that thought his arm was an extension of the pathways, for the seals pumped an almost ungodly amount of chakra through his arm. In a sudden explosion of blood, the white snow covering the pathway was suddenly a blanket of blood, while Naruto, who was thrown back by the gate, cried put painfully with tears running down his face. He looked in horror at his left arm, which lay limply at his side. The blood oozing out was way too much, and the pain was more than terrible. Naruto slowly gathered himself and ripped off his pants pipe and used it as a makeshift band-aid. He slowly made his way to the house, only to find out he couldn't get in because the same seals on the gate were also on the house, meaning he couldn't get into the house now. He chuckled bitterly. On his 7th birthday they forget about him, and even if he screamed for help, he knew no one would hear him. After all, there were silencing seals on the compound because of the girls who made noise, and especially when they were babies, because the girls screamed and cried, waking their neighbors up. Research Department. A shiver ran down Tsunade's back, a feeling of dread pooled in the pit of her abdomen. She tried to shake it off, yet it seemed as if it didn't want to leave, and she couldn't help but think something bad just happened. Tsunade-sama, are you alright? You look like you dazed out there. Is something bothering you? One of the male medical researchers asked her, and she shook her head. No, everything's fine, Dai-san. Why don't you get the laser so we can finally try cutting this piece of shit open? I don't have all day to spend in this place. She barked at him, and he quickly got going to get that laser. While Tsunade looked down at this glowing purple rock the size of a boulder, for some odd reason this thing had just appeared out of nowhere, so they were tasked with finding out what it meant. Little did they know what they had in their midst. Hyuga Compound. Neji ni. A small girl with navy blue hair called out to a boy with dark brown hair. They both shared the same pupilless eyes, but while his was gray, hers was lavender. Hi Hinata-sama. What's wrong? The boy, no more than recently turned 8, asked the girl identified as Hinata, who wore a light purple kimono. I'm having another vision. Naruto-kun's left arm is all bandaged up and he's kneeling on the ground crying, and there's red all around him like it's trying to consume him. Hinata's eyes glowed a silver, white color before going back to lavender, and she stared at the boy, who had quickly came to her side. Naruto. Why's his arm bandaged? Why's he crying? Neji asked. He remembered Hinata, and he met Naruto back when Hinata was 4 and he himself was 5. Some boys were bullying Hinata when he had arrived there to stop them, but he was beaten to the punch by a blonde-headed boy who saved Hinata. So from that day on, Hinata and himself had become friends with Naruto quickly. I don't know Neji ni, but he looked so sad, the girl cried out into her cousin's chest. Namikaze Compound. Naruto sat outside as the sun started setting. He let out a bitter laugh. I can't believe it, even after they forgot about me I still hope deep down they'll come back. But it's been 10 hours and I feel so cold. I wonder, would my sisters be happy if I died? Naruto couldn't help but think these things. After all, he lost too much blood and it was getting colder by the minute now that the sun set. 6 hours later, an hour before midnight. Naruto let out a cough. He looked like he was wearing a white full bodysuit, however this just happened to be a thin layer of frost coating his body, while both arms lay limp at his side. His lips were purple and his skin tone looked like a bluish mixed with peach. His hair no longer the bright sun-kissed yellow, now it was a dull yellow. Gem-like amethyst violet eyes peeped from behind his eyelids. If you looked closely you would see a broken soul. He glanced at the sky, seeing a full moon with brightly lit stars in the sky, and fresh tears rolled down his marked cheeks. If this is how my life ends, well damn. What a life. Neglected for my sisters. Ignored by most of the other clan children. Ah, what a life. My only friends Hinata, Neji and Itachi. Jiraiya Ero. Tsunade Ka-chan. Makoto Ka-chan. Katsume Oba. Bawako Oba. Shizune ne. Anko ne. Tuchi-san and Ayame-chan. I'll miss you. Naruto thought as he felt a tremor wreck his small body that he couldn't feel anymore.
Slowly a bittersweet smile made its way across his face. His eyes dimmed, slowly losing all the life they once had, and just as the fireworks went off exploding in a shower of different colors, the last bit of life left his eyes and his pulse stopped.
Festival. Minato and Kushina had gotten all the clan children, and the children played while the parents got drunk, except for the Uchihas because Itachi just came back from a mission. Fugaku was stuck doing paperwork. Makoto believed she had a stomach virus, and Sasuke was sick with flu.
The Hyuga cousins were watching and looking where Naruto was because they only arrived a few hours earlier at like 5 because their father was called to a meeting quickly by the elders, and when they arrived they thought maybe Tsunade was with him or had him somewhere, but now that the fireworks just went off and everyone was gathered around, neither Hyuga could spot Naruto anywhere, and that left a sense of dread in their stomachs, especially since Hinata's vision. Poof! Suddenly white smoke covered the area and out popped Jiraiya of the Sannin, grinning like a mad thing as both Noriko and Nanami ran over to him demanding what they got for their birthday, and everyone else surrounded.
Now children, because Minato is my student, I will be allowing you to sign the Toad contract. Now where's Naruto? I want him to sign first, after all he was born 5 minutes before you girls. Naruto? Naruto, you brat, where are you? Kushina? Minato? Where is the brat? I know Shizune and Tsunade's at the research department. This question was answered with a deadly amount of silence which left Jiraiya uneasy. Minato and Kushina paled while Noriko and Nanami looked a little angry but also devious. Oh my gosh! Minato, we forgot him at home. Ah, let's hope he didn't trash the house. You know how he pranks. He'll probably forgive us when we let him sign the Toad contract. Let's go home quickly. Kushina said, and all the clan mothers looked at her in shock. How could she forget her own son? Minato nodded, and they all, including the other clan heads and their children, made their way to the Namikaze compound, not knowing the horrifying scene that shall forever be embedded in their memories.
Uchiha compound. Makoto decided since she was feeling better she would drag Itachi, Sasuke and her husband with to the Namikaze compound, thinking that they will meet the family along the way to give their wishes, not knowing Itachi's life would change to the event he was about to witness. Namikaze compound. The minute Minato and Kushina opened the gates they were hit by a heavy smell of iron, a smell they knew all too well.
The children let out screams at the horrifying bloody gates and snow-covered pathway that was now looking like a bloody puddle. Before anyone could do anything, Hinata and Neji ran in a certain direction of the gardens in the compound. Itachi and Makoto soon followed not a minute later, and after knocking the other children out they all ran in the same direction as the others, only to come to a sudden stop as they gazed upon the scene.
Naruto-kun! Hinata yelled as she dropped to her knees, tears free-falling. I stood behind her, throwing up and crying too. Makoto was no better than Hinata, she too was on her knees. Itachi was too, but his eyes changed. First it flashed red, then it turned into his Sharingan with 3 comers before it turned into what looked like a windmill shuriken, but only the legs were longer and sharper looking than a shuriken.
The scene before them made their hearts stop for a moment. There, under the same tree that he sat under when he was 4 reading about advanced chakra manipulation, was the figure of Naruto. Blood-red snow beneath him. His now lifeless amethyst-violet eyes were half open as if staring back at them, accusing, and the bittersweet smile he wore was still upon his face as if frozen for eternity. My baby! Makoto cried out, sobbing while shooting up and running to him and clutching his small frozen frame against her own bigger one, running her hand through his now dulled blonde hair. It's going to be okay. Honey, Ka-chan's here, baby, Ka-chan's here now, everything will be fine. She sobbed, rocking back and forth while one thought ran through the other clan's heads. Why is Makoto crying like is her son? Poor woman looks distraught, and Kushina and Minato are frozen in shock and horror. The full moon shone over the scene as Jiraiya was on his knees with tears running down his face. He suddenly got up and slapped both Kushina and Minato across their faces, snapping them out of their daze, and Kushina suddenly started crying, whispering, my baby, oh my baby, over and over while Minato shook, crying silently. This is your entire fault. If you just cared more about your son than always about your daughters, maybe this wouldn't have happened. Now let's get your fucking son to Tsunade to see what she can do about your fuck up. Jiraiya barked at them, and Kushina cried some more before making her way over to Makoto, who still rocked Naruto back and forth, and she took Naruto's body out her best friend's arms, who was shaking badly. Miko-chan. Let's go to the hospital. Sue. She never got to finish because Makoto stood up and slapped her across her tear-stained face while glaring daggers at her, a true Uchiha glare that never before was directed at her. And it left her speechless and standing with Naruto's ice-cold body in her arms. "You not his mother. Or a friend of mine," Makoto said and walked away before Kushina followed her, silently crying more as she and everyone else made their way to the hospital in silence with the sobs of Hinata loud in their ears. Hospital. Tsunade and Shizune gave up. They really did. They spent a whole day's worth of time with Naruto wasted at the research department, and in the end they got nothing from the stupid fucking rock that seemed to glow brighter, and it was just a ways from illuminating the room. Tsunade sighed. That idiot Jiraiya got to see her Naru-chan before her. That was unfair. She mentally pouted. Bang. The doors banged open and a gasping, teary-eyed Shizune made her look at the door's direction, and what she saw only brought back memories of her past love and dead brother and made her heart boil with anger. Naruto. What the fuck happened to him? Minato, Kushina. Answer me. Tsunade roared in anger, looking at the boy before her who lied in a teary-eyed Kushina's arms, who was rushing to her silently with Makoto lurking with tears behind her and glowing red eyes showing why she was the Uchiha head's wife. I have a guess, Minato said palely as Tsunade turned her deadly golden brown eyes to him and then back to Kushina, and then she slowly looked down at Naruto. He had no pulse. I want a good damn fucking explanation from you, Shizune. Get yourself together. You nurses, get a goddamn stretcher. Asp. Now. Tsunade yelled the last part and the nurses ran off and did just that. With Tsunade. Come on Naruto. Damn it, don't leave me. Beat you stupid heartbeat. Tsunade thought as tears fell from her eyes, looking down at the small boy that lied before her on a table, and another doctor came to her and shook his head, and she still tried along with Shizune, who also cried. Unknown place. Naruto, wake up. Open your eyes. Your beautiful eyes. A voice was heard in the endless white around him, and he suddenly found himself lying on lush green grass and a clear blue sky above him. Where am I? Am I dead? Naruto thought, and then there was a laugh sounding like chiming glass bells, and he sat up and looked around until he found the source of the sound. A beautiful woman with bright red hair and violet eyes walked towards him. She was fair and slim. She wore a white robe like kimono that reached her ankles. Her hair was tied up in 2 buns on top of her head, and paper tags dangling from the senbon needles poking out on either side of her buns. The kimono was simple with silver and gold designs on it, and she walked barefoot towards him with a mother's smile upon her face, as she helped him stand. Naruto. You are the heir to the Uzumaki legacy. Yes, you have died, but not for long. You are in the realm of choosing. This is the Uzumaki legacy. My name is Mito Uzumaki. I will be explaining to you about your blood rights, however it will be locked in your mind until you gain back what you have lost. The woman said, and with every word she said Naruto felt shocked, happy and confusion. He was happy he was meeting an ancestor, especially since she, from what he read in the history books, was the clan heir until she passed away after the Uzumaki was destroyed and his mother got to the village, yet she never named someone next in line for heir. What do you mean? How can I be the clan's heir? I mean, I didn't do anything. And I don't even know any clan fuinjutsu. This was said with his head drooping and a frown. Mito's mouth frowned downwards and she put her hand on his shoulder. You, out of everyone out there, have the true heart and soul of a clan leader. Your intelligence, strategic mind, will and determination, and naturally seeing the good in everything. Even the family that neglected you. Don't take revenge. Just show them what they missed out on, but don't forgive them. Tolerate but never forget. You face many challenges ahead of you. Mito told him with a small smile upon her lips. Meanwhile, in the realm of the living, only a few seconds had gone by and Tsunade and Shizune were still trying to revive him, but only managed to regenerate some tissue for his arm, but they could do nothing about the destroyed chakra coils in his left arm. Outside, Kushina and Minato got verbal beat-downs by Makoto, and it made them feel like shit, while Hinata and Neji refused to leave the hospital until they got word of Naruto, while many of the other clans went home shaking their heads at the couple, and Itachi sat on the other end perking up every time a doctor walked past. Back in the Uzumaki realm of choosing, Naruto sat listening to what was going on and what was going to happen when he gets sent back. I can't believe this, and no one knew this, only from one clan head to the next? And when I get back, my memories of this place will be sealed until I choose of my own will what my next steps will be, and if I don't choose the right one, my memories and my heir rights will be wiped clean like my mother? Also, there's a glowing purple rock that you sealed a lot of your chakra, including half of your soul in? And it will come to me the minute I take the right path. Then now that you told me everything, I guess you going to send me back? Naruto asked. Why was his life so troublesome? In the realm of the living, Shikamaru sneezed. Yes, but before that, remember. About the prophecy, you will regain what you have lost, for the future has been foretold, or all will be lost for the greater events that will soon happen, and the heir of Whirlpool, who holds a great burden of hatred, will need to rise above all that's against him. Now Naruto, are you ready to go back? Mito asked, and he nodded, remembering the prophecy she told him that he was a part of. After he nodded, Mito leaned forward and placed a kiss on his forehead and watched him slow fused look before fading away. She sighed and rubbed her wrist where a seal was seen. The seal held the Uzumaki's white crest with gold outlines around it. It appeared when she proved herself to her grand uncle Ashina Uzumaki, the eldest brother to her grandfather. She became heir when she was 16, and it seems so long ago.
Realm of the living. Bump. Bee bump. Bee bump. Tsunade heard a heartbeat and she let fresh tears fall, but in joy. Shizune was in a similar state while all the doctors cheered.
After stabilizing him, Shizune and Tsunade went to the family to give them the news. She saw Jiraiya sitting with his head between his knees. Minato holding a still crying Kushina while he cried himself. Hinata and Neji sitting by Makoto, who promised the Hyugas she'll take care of them. Makoto herself was looking exhausted and sick, and you could tell she's been vomiting by the pale shaking hands. Itachi sat a seat away from his mother, and Fugaku held a sleeping Sasuke on his lap, unconsciously holding Sasuke tighter to him because of what had happened to Naruto. He didn't want it to happen with his sons, so he decided he'll lay off them.
Tsunade cleared her throat and got their attention, and they all jumped.
He is alive, she said with a tired smile. She couldn't help but think there was something else at play here, because he had been dead for at least an hour when he got to the hospital, and then it took an hour to revive him, but she was grateful for little mercies. And we managed to save his arm. However, the good news stops there. The bad news is that he did die, but we revived him in time, and he will not be able to use his arm for months. That's where it gets worse. He will never be able to be a ninja. His chakra coils are destroyed in his arm, and his chakra system was broken and can't be replaced. At this, everything was silent before the crying started again. What are we going to tell him? Jiraiya asked softly, and no one answered that until Minato did. As Hokage, everyone is banned from saying anything to him about his chakra coils until Kushina or I tell him. Is that clear? He said, and everyone was shocked, and while most nodded in acceptance, Tsunade, Jiraiya and Makoto angrily stomped off with words of, if he asks us, we will tell him the truth. With Naruto looked at the ceiling. He couldn't remember anything else but that his family had forgotten him, and that it showed they obviously don't care. Kushina and Minato walked into the room and watched him, and even when they tried talking to him, he didn't say anything except facial expressions until he asked how long it would take to use his arm again, and after he got his answer he went to sleep.
Unknown place. So they finally made their move, huh? Well, we'll see. All the pieces are finally moving. Now it's my turn, a dark-eyed man said, chuckling before smirking and moving a piece on the shogi board. Was the future really as black and white? Or was there some things lurking between the light and dark side of the equilibrium? A month had passed since the accident. Kushina and Minato just either didn't think Naruto had a right to know about his chakra system or didn't have the heart to crush the boy. While Naruto never asked about why the people around him looked so sympathetic towards him, he did ask when he'll be able to use his arm again, because he thought they looked towards him like that because of not being able to use his arm. While his sisters were way more bitchy now because he was getting attention from their parents even if he didn't really want it now. Tsunade, Shizune, Katsume, Bawako, Jiraiya, Anko, Itachi, Neji, Hinata and Makoto came to visit him every now and again, and they the only ones he'd smile at, well, including Shishu, who had only came back from a long mission. Shishu and he weren't close before because the guy was always busy, especially since he was in Anbu. However, they also became somewhat friends since he was given a leave for 2 months. Though many of the people that actually cared for him weren't there most of the time because they were all very busy, and that was understandable being the people they are. Despite everything, Naruto still trained without his parents' knowledge of cause. After the accident, he decided he needed to learn some medic ninjutsu in case something like that happened again. He asked Tsunade and Shizune, and they agreed immediately since Tsunade had found him walking up the side of the room walls, which she thought impossible, but soon she and Shizune started teaching him medical ninjutsu. Senju Compound.
Tsunade lay upon her bed and thought about the events that happened and how Naruto was still able to use chakra. She remembered telling Naruto she was just going to give him a checkup, and she secretly found out that because Naruto had perfect chakra control for a child, and even though she believed he will never be able to use chakra in his body at all, she found out because of his control he was able to use the chakra in him, but just barely. But it saddened her to know she couldn't tell him anything until Minato or Kushina told him. That, however, didn't mean she wouldn't teach him medical jutsus, although secretly just between Naruto, Shizune and herself. She was happy he could at least use some chakra from his broken coils. Thinking about it made her frown. Maybe he inherited one good thing from Kushina then, and that was the Uzumaki healing abilities, but even she knew it would take the vitality of someone like her grandmother, Mito, to heal a chakra system that was broken in 20 places, these places being his 2 parts by his stomach, 3 parts in his arm that was damaged badly, 7 along his ribs, another 3 in his left leg, 2 in his other arm, 1 by his shoulder blades and 2 near his heart. This really scared her, but even above all odds he worked hard to use even a little of his chakra, and that put a smile on her face. With Naruto. Naruto smiled lightly. A month ago Makoto found out she was pregnant, and when she told him he was so happy for her. Soon Naruto found himself frowning again. He obviously was only released from the hospital last month, and he was slowly accepting his parents back into his heart unknowingly, and his sisters were still trying to direct the attention back to themselves, and it was working slowly. It was just a matter of time.
Naruto shook his head and thought on better matters, like he had learned to cast jutsu with one hand. Now wasn't that cool? Now he could perform jutsu while keeping his other hand free. And he learned, or better yet completed, his genjutsu that he had been trying to get down the day before his parents forgot him.
It was called Mirror. This allowed him to be somewhere without people or the affected person to see, or more like ignore his presence, and they won't pay him much thought, almost as if making himself invisible to that person or people. So it soon became that his favorite thing to do was use his sisters as test subjects for this jutsu, because he could make himself invisible to them, so even if he was there they wouldn't pay any attention to him. That's unless he made physical contact or spoke too loudly, but also he made it so that if you didn't notice him you won't think about him much, only in maybe like a passing thought. He made this with the intention of not being noticed, so he won't get into trouble and so he could train in peace. He loved this genjutsu and thought if he mastered it one day it could become a base for another genjutsu that would be better than this one, but the original had a fault that if someone who wasn't affected by the genjutsu starts up a conversation about the caster. Another thing is the medical ninjutsu. That had taken him a month to get down one jutsu. And although it wasn't grad, it was something, and the basics are always something to know even if it was E-ranked. Naruto pouted and decided to rather sleep than carry on pondering over the last 2 months. Dream. Naruto suddenly found himself in an empty white abyss and saw a flash of something. Then a deep male voice rang out all around him. Descendant, but strength of the heart is more powerful. Remember. The voice spoke, but most parts couldn't be heard, and Naruto tried calling out, but the voice would speak, but then some parts were blocked out so he couldn't hear. Suddenly he found himself falling in a black abyss and he was screaming. There was suddenly a burning in his chest, like flames coming out as if to consume him and swallow him whole. End dream. It was 1 in the morning when Naruto awoke, startled and breathing hard. He tried to move, feeling an incredible pain throughout his body. That's when he noticed Nariko and Nanami both laying beside him with their heads on his chest. Naruto found it hard to breathe, let alone demand they get off him, so instead, with every fiber in his body screaming at him not to move, he wriggled, shaking the girls awake. What the hell are you doing in my room? You too, Nanami. This was said by a very irritated Nariko for being woken up at such an ungodly hour. Nanami looked confused around the room before looking at her brother, then looking at Nariko, telling her this was not their rooms and it was his. Although said harshly, the 2 girls quickly left to their own rooms, not paying attention to their very pale brother, who had immediately ran to the basin in his bathroom and started vomiting. Red. That's what Naruto saw, all in the basin. It was like the tiles were turned red. Only that wasn't the case, because he knew something was wrong now. Suddenly feeling dizzy, he managed to stumble out the bathroom only to fall face first towards his bed, and then he knew no more. 3 hours later, Naruto woke up and in his still dizzy state he wandered down the hall, but as he paced his parents' room he heard their voices and he stopped as he heard his name mentioned. Room. Kushina sat on the bed watching Minato get ready to go to the Hokage office. Lately she felt a lot more moody and her stomach was giving her problems, always cramping. She watched Minato slip on his Junin vest and tie his headband on. Minato. When are we going to tell Naruto? I mean, we've been putting it off all this time and it keeps his hopes up and being more hopeful, she said, sighing, and Minato came and sat beside her and slowly stroked her hair, and she leaned in towards him. Kushina. We'll tell him soon, okay? But we can't right now come out and say, hey Naruto, don't take it the wrong way, but using my influence as Hokage, I told everyone not to tell you that you will never reach your dreams because your arm's chakra coils are completely destroyed and your entire network has been broken into almost 20 places, so you will never be able to use chakra or become a ninja ever. Yeah, Kushina, I doubt that would play out well, especially since we messed up big time with most of our friends because of the accident. This was said in a dry tone with a very blank look, and Kushina sighed, wondering why things couldn't be easier. Naruto's mouth was on the floor. He wasn't going to be a ninja again because of them? That wasn't fair. Slowly tears pooled in his eyes, falling to the floor, and he ran out, not caring that he was still a bit dizzy. He ran past everything and everyone. He had soon ran into a forbidden district, where a lot of the Kyuubi's chakra that wasn't sealed fast enough lurked. Why didn't they tell me? Did I not have the right to know? How could they? I hate them. I hate this place. I wish I can just leave and never come back. Naruto cried out to the heavens in anguish as he held his arm. Naruto cried on his knees, holding his arm. The complete anguish in his sobs was the only sounds ringing in the clearing. Suddenly green chakra came swirling all around the clearing from the forest. This was also a type of healing chakra, but only if it had to, though it never found much that perked its interest, but Naruto didn't notice this because his eyes were shut as if in pain as his heart clenched painfully in his chest. Soon, without him noticing, the swirling mass of green chakra covered him completely. This chakra was what had consumed the Kyuubi's chakra and turned it into its own. The chakra had one instinct, and that was to find out why this boy was in such a state, never having sensed such before. So when it touched him, it was shocked, being leftover chakra that was just left around after people died. It had felt loss and pain, but never a broken soul to this extent. The green chakra disappeared, but having a bit of a mind its own, it decided to watch this boy, being curious as to why this boy had dark wisps of red chakra in his system that was seemingly killing him slowly from the inside and was oddly like the Kyuubi's chakra. Sometime later, after 2 hours of non-stop crying and screaming, Naruto decided to get himself together and stood up, looking for the first time at his surroundings, and saw a few buildings that looked a bit old and not maintained, so in childish anger and curiosity he walked into a random building and looked around. The place was a mess with rats and insects running about. Growing even more curious, he followed a hallway and came to a staircase leading down, so he walked down slowly, only to see a few doors here and there until something caught his eyes. It was a wall on the right. It looked a bit skew, so he walked up to the wall and pushed. At first it didn't budge. After a second time it crumbled in on itself, showing a hallway. Naruto followed it without thinking, and some of the green chakra that decided to just rest a little in his arm that was in the sling grew weary at the feel of the place. Soon he came upon a room. It looked like some kind of messed up lab. There was a bed in the middle like one from hospitals, only this was matted with blood, dried blood. There were about 20 different bottled liquids of different colors with funny writing on them that was faded. Then there was 2 basins on the other side. All in all, the place gave off a bad vibe. Naruto walked around a bit until he decided to see what those bottles contained. He took one off the shelf and tried to read it, but instead it slipped, and without thinking he tried to catch it, only it ended up cutting his unusable hand, and watched it heal up quickly after the liquid sunk into the wounds. Naruto yelped and checked his arm, and he felt like he could move it a bit. In an act of complete hope and stupidity, he collected all the bottles and poured the sink full of the stuff, leaving the bottles empty and on one side. He mixed it with a piece of broken wood. Once he was satisfied, he unwrapped all the bandages and braced himself. Ah! He let out a scream as the liquid burned his arm. He quickly fell to the floor, mentally shouting at himself for being stupid. Why did you do that? Ah, it hurts so much. You just had to get hopeful and do that. You idiot. How you gonna leave Konoha now if you gonna die? Please, someone help me, please. These were Naruto's thoughts before he blacked out from the pain. The green chakra in his arm was panicked. The first thing that spilled into the wounds was dealt with quickly, but also took quite a bit effort, leaving the green chakra with hardly anything left because of how strong that acid was. And now this. Just when it was getting more curious about the boy, so it did the only thing it could do. It called on all the other green chakra that lie bored around the place to help it save the person it was curious about. The other green chakra responded and were there in no time.
All the chakra surrounded Naruto and forced itself into the boy. Naruto could be thankful that this chakra was trying to help him and that his coils were broken in those 20 places, otherwise this could have turned out very badly for him. However, no one would ever expect the future outcome of this.
Hokage's office. I want all Junin here ASAP. There was a sudden chakra surge in the condemned areas that are still going down to be rebuilt, and we need to know exactly what happened and how it happened. Minato was not happy as he yelled out orders to his assistant. Kushina stood off to the side while Jiraiya leaned against the wall with Angs were frustrating Minato out. How could there be such a strong surge? I know it didn't come from the girls, I was with them the whole day until you called me here. This was said by a very worried Kushina who had indeed been with the girls training them in weapons. Jiraiya grunted and Minato sighed. Naruto groaned. He was suddenly stunned with his memories of what happened and how it happened. He suddenly slapped himself hard. Ow. How could I have been so stupid? Shit, ow, what the hell? Everything hurts. What happened? This was Naruto's thoughts as he shifted from the floor until his eyes widened comically and he let out a yell. What the heck? Gosh. My other arm works. Kami, I think that stuff in the bottles did this. Aw, stupid Naruto, stupid. You really shouldn't have done that.
This is what was shouted out as the boy slapped himself with both hands when he had realized both his hands were working, but also let out a whoop and started cheering until he remembered why he was so angry and sad, and then he frowned and blinked away the oncoming tears.
How am I going to explain this? Wait a minute, I said I was gonna leave this hellhole and never come back, so I'll only hide this with the bandages. As he thought this, Naruto quickly performed one-hand seals for a henge in case there were other changes and felt like the blockage of his coils wasn't there anymore. After performing the henge, he looked at himself in a broken mirror and nodded happy to himself. He decided to figure everything out when he left Konoha. Quickly Naruto left, not noticing that the basin was empty and the teams of Junin around the area. As he was on his way back to the compound, he found out he's been out for a day and a half, and he started rushing away until he saw some girls surrounding a pink-headed girl. They were all bullying this girl. Suddenly he felt anger build up in him and stormed their way. Hey! What's going on here? Leave her alone. Go home. After he said this, all the girls scattered at the anger in his voice never heard before, so they were all quick to run away. This left Naruto alone with the pink-headed girl who was crying in the middle of the park. Hey, are you okay? What's your name? I'm Naruto. Why was those girls bothering you? Naruto asked gently, sitting down in front of the girl, and she sniffed and shook her head. You not here to tease me, are you? She asking softly, stuttering and looking at him with emerald green eyes, making him blink and shake his head. I'm Sakura. Haruno, and they always tease me about my forehead. I don't know why I have a big forehead. It's not my fault. She yelled before sobbing into her knees with her body shaking, and Naruto patted her head with the hand that wasn't damaged before he fixed it. I'm sorry. Your forehead isn't that big. They're lying to you just because you must be really smart. He told her, smiling softly, and she looked up with hopeful eyes. Here, take this. He said, pulling out a purple string that he used as a bookmark from his pocket and tied it double on her wrist. I'm going home now. Bye. Naruto said, waving at her, and she smiled a little smile and wiped her tears away. Bye, Naruto-kun. She yelled, her voice cracking a little from all her crying. Later that night, when Naruto got home, the place was empty and no one was around, so he went to his room and undid the henge and looked in the mirror and noticed some differences. First, his hair now had black streaks along with the blonde. His eyes stayed the same but looked more intensive than before, and his whisker marks were a bit lighter now and looked like they would fade as he grew older. He quickly noticed that there was more of a curve in his face, giving it a bit of a sharper look than before, and he looked just a bit older with his features and hardly like his father or mother now, and he was glad for that. Wow, I wonder if it was because of that medication that I'm like this now. Maybe I should try and see if my jutsus still work properly. Naruto thought, admiring his new looks before making a shadow clone that he learned how to make when he secretly watched Kushina teach it to the girls. So he spent the rest of the day checking if his genjutsus worked still and if the medical ninjutsu also worked, and also the Academy 3 along with a little fuinjutsu. During this time he found himself able to go on for a while without getting chakra exhausted. He managed to figure out casting genjutsu was easier now and didn't need way too much concentration like before, and his little bit of ninjutsu he had, which was only 5 and all low C ranked, he learned them from watching Minato train the girls before his injury. The jutsus were all stronger and took less time to do. Once again he was struggling with something he picked up. It was that he had a slight chakra sense and figured that out when Kushina came home, and he got a jolt of surprise when he felt her chakra in the house. This added to Naruto's building questions, and he decided to rather keep the henge up until he buys some blonde dye so no one notices before he leaves, which he decided would be the weekend because he wanted to get more of a feel to his slightly new appearance and abilities, also to get supplies together and plan an escape. Unknown. Meanwhile, elsewhere, a woman wearing a blue dress banged a wooden desk in frustration. She wore a scowl on her face as she read the scroll again. 100 children killed, 1,000 men and women killed. 12 ice users from the Yuki clan. 20 Hazuka clan members. Others, all smaller clans, dead in different ways. Day 1. Naruto woke up earlier than he has in the past. It was Tuesday. He remembered everything that happened and what has changed his attitude with living in Konoha. He sat up slowly and yawned while rubbing his eyes. Looking in the mirror of his bathroom, his hair was now dyed full blonde again. He had changed nothing else of his new appearance, but none of the changes were truly noticeable unless you looked carefully. After brushing his teeth and taking a bath, he wrapped up the arm that used to be damaged so no one would grow suspicious and got dressed in a black shirt and gray shorts. He put his left arm in the sling and went out of the compound to make his way to an empty training ground to start planning his escape by looking at the patrols and time. So if I time it properly, around this time I could get out. Then again I would not get far. Unless I take this route. This could possibly work. He thought hard about the timing and where the patrols lapsed, as well as how many were on duty and how it would conflict with the plan he had, yet also how it could fit in. By noon he was dead tired because he had spent a long time by the training grounds planning. However, he had gotten hungry long before his plan was put together, so he ended up going to Ichiraku Ramen and got some vegetable ramen for a late breakfast before he headed to the library looking for Konoha's layout, and it took quite a while to find it, so after studying it he made a copy of it by drawing it and put the original back. Then he went for a snack. He got home early so that he could start on his letter to Tsunade and had to suffer through dinner with his family, with Kushina chatting happily with Nariko and Nanami while Minato smiled and nodded, only responding when he had to. There were shadows under the two adults' eyes, yet they pretended to be fine, but Naruto of course ignored all of them for his own restraints. Later that night he once again dreamt about that voice saying the same thing, which made him confused and irritated. Day 2. Waking up and stretching before doing his morning routine for himself. He soon after dressed, then bandaged his not-so-damaged arm up and put it in the sling. Leaving the house and compound was easy to do. He went to the training grounds to train a little before anyone came around, and then also worked on his escape plans by checking out different escape routes, and decided that the front gate was the best option when using the plan he had in mind. By the time he got home he was way too tired to family and play the brother and son in the house. So he just took his dinner and ate in his room, ignoring the rest of them. After eating he made 2 storage scrolls and packed up 5 of his shirts and 5 pants and shorts, along with 2 pairs of ninja sandals. He sealed all that in the one scroll and put it in a black backpack that had many pockets. He went to sleep early because it was just 2 days before he left and he needed to plan out everything properly. Day 3. He performed the same morning ritual that he has for the past 2 days before leaving. This time, however, he went to the market using a henge. He took all his money he had saved up from his parents and Tsunade. He ended up spending 3 hours at the market buying rations, a few bottles of water, a medical kit, a sewing kit, a set of sharp kunai and shurikens, as well as a roll of exploding tags. Going to an alley, he sealed all the new supplies in the other storage scroll he made and undid the henge before getting some breakfast. The money was all what he got in the monthly allowances, which was 100 yen for the month, however, with him collecting and saving since he was 5. Going bad to the compound once again, he decided to skip supper and went to his room. He sat at his desk and pulled out the letter he was going to leave for Tsunade and read over it for the 5th time since he wrote it. Tomorrow night, the night when everyone will be occupied with his escape plan going off, that's when he'll leave. He would have enough time from the morning to set up his plan. Naruto sighed softly. Why couldn't they just tell me? They could have at least made amends by telling me and helping me through it, but instead they kept it from me. I can't go back now. I have completely lost all the trust I had in them. I will leave tomorrow and I will never come back. And if I do, I'll prove how much of a better person I am. As he thought this, his emotions swirled. One part of him believed deep down that maybe they still loved him, but the other part argued if they loved him even a little they would have said something or comforted him a little like they do to Noriko and Nanami. So with his inner struggle aside that no longer wanted them as a family one, and he steeled himself, determined not to hold on anymore, because after all they have done, what forgiveness do they deserve? So despite his determination to keep his grudge against them, he had made up his choice of leaving and not staying and snapping at them, making himself look like a brat. That night Naruto dreamt of being free, and the last string that kept him attached to the Namakazes was broken. He was going to make a name for himself, and if his any Namikaze came in his way again, he'd make sure they would be sorry, because he will never forgive or forget the emotional hurt they put him through. Day 4. Escape. Getting up and doing his morning routine, he took the backpack and left the compound as fast as he could while they were all sleeping. He went to the library and pulled out a roll of paper bombs and put 3 of them on different walls of the library without anyone noticing because of the genjutsu he used, which was mirror. As quickly and quietly as possible he left the library and cancelled the genjutsu he used. His next stop was the market. Namikaze compound. From the minute Kushina woke she had a sense of dread in the pit of her stomach, but she ignored it in favor of making breakfast for her family. As she flipped the pancakes she thought about Naruto. She completely pushed away the thought of having neglected her only son. No, I never neglected him. He was just always so quiet and caused trouble. That's why we sometimes forget about him or ignore him. After all, I never raised him to be disrupted. The only reason he can't play pranks now is because of his arm, so the girls must be mistaking some other child's pranks for Naruto's. Yeah, that must be it. As she thought upon this, the girls ran down the staircase and into the kitchen with big smiles on their faces, making herself smile as well. Naruto. After putting about several exploding tags multiple places in the market where people won't really get hurt, he made his way to the hospital and put some tags around there before going and doing the same to the Hokage Tower with the last few tags without anyone noticing him. Naruto soon made his way to Ichirika's ramen stand and got himself a few bowls of miso ramen. Tsunade Ka-san will be mad at me for making her worry, but the letter will let her know I'm okay. I'm going to leave. But will I survive? No one's going to be there to save me. I'm going to be on my own. But I'll get lonely. I wonder if I'll make friends. Naruto thought upon this, slightly fearful. After all, he was only just a child and he could only hope that his intellectual mind would help him. Drinking the miso soup, he thanked the father-daughter duo who watched him with worried. Naruto walked out the stand with the black backpack slung over his back and looked up at the sky as a soft breeze blew by, ruffling his blonde hair. The sun stood dead still in the sky, indicating that it was 12 now. Naruto turned away and made his way into a forest by a nearby training ground, looking for a stream to use a dye remover to wash out the blonde dye. He had planned everything out as best as he could. Now all he had to do was put this plan in motion and make his escape. 10 hours later. A boy in black, who was identified as Naruto with his streaks in his hair, moved around in the shadows as quickly and silently as he could as he made his way to the front gates of Konoha with a black backpack slung over his back. He stood in the shadow of the wall making his chakra signal as small as he could. Then he made a hand sign and sent out a small pulse of chakra and then hanged into a rat at the same time as casting his genjutsu mirror on the guards by the gate. Boom! Was the sound of all the paper bombs going off, which was also Naruto's signal to leave when the gate guards jumped looking for the problem that caused the explosion. So hanged as a rat, Naruto hightailed it out of Konoha gates, hiding a good distance away from the place that tried to destroy his dreams, in between some tree roots. Namikaze compound. Minato lied in his bed next to Kushina thinking about Naruto. Come to think of it, I haven't seen him the whole day. I wonder if Kushina has. As he thought this, an explosion went off, startling Kushina awake. Minato. What's going on? There was just an explosion. Oh my god. Where are the girls? Kushina asked frantically as she jumped up and quickly got dressed in some pants and a top and grabbed her weapons. Minato quickly did the same and the two of them rushed to the girls' rooms. Getting to their rooms, they found the girls shaking and awake with confused and fearful looks on their faces. Unknown to them, in their panicked haste, they fell back into their routine of easily forgetting their son. Ka-san? To-san? What's going on? What happened? Was that an explosion? Is the village under attack? The two girls shot off questions one after each other. It seems like it, but don't worry, angels. To-san and Ka-san will protect you, Kushina told the girls, comforting them as an Enbu showed up and started speaking to Minato. Kushina, let's go, we need it at the office. The village is going on lockdown for the next few days until a proper investigation is done. Let's go, we need to get to the bottom of this, and soon. After Minato said this, Kushina nodded and said goodbye to the girls, and they both disappeared in a yellow flash together. Naruto. After waiting a few minutes, he undid the hinge and started running as fast as he could in the direction which was the borders of Fire Country as it had stated on the map he had with him. He still held his breath, hoping that the village will be put on lockdown for an investigation so he could get out of the country as fast and as safely as he could without being noticed. As he sprinted further away using his chakra to stick on the branches, he could not help but feel a bit of eye, but he pushed that aside. He needed to think about himself for a change. Hokage Tower. The people occupying the meeting room were in utter chaos and disorder, with clan heads and civilians shouting and fighting among each other, and that is the scene Minato and Kushina flashed into. The chaos only settled down by seeing their Hokage and his wife. Hokage-sama, Kushina-sama. What's going on? Are we being attacked? Have you caught anyone yet? Do you know who did this? These were the questions fired off by the civilian council members. One being especially loud was Haruno Mebuki, which made some of the more sensitive clan heads wince at the loudness. Silence. Firstly, it would seem like we are being attacked. Secondly, we do not know who the culprit is. Thirdly, what we do know is that the library, hospital, area around this tower and the market was targeted, other than that no other places have been bombed with explosive tags. This is a worrying factor, so the village will be on lockdown for the next few days until an investigation is done. Dismissed. After explaining this to the council, they accepted it and Minato and Kushina left to his office. Naruto. Naruto stood panting. He felt like he had been running forever, much longer than he could keep up. He pulled out the map and estimated that he was about halfway to the border of Fire Country, and like someone lifted a weight off his shoulders, he slumped over under the tree he was standing under. After all, he had been running right through the night, only taking short breaks every now and then. Soon he fell asleep under the tree, hidden behind some of the bigger roots.
8 hours later, by the time Naruto woke up again, he could see by the sky and sun that it was probably late afternoon, and he mentally smacked himself out of his sheer forgetfulness with his situation. What if the village sent out Anbu already? And they could have caught him.
What if they caught me? Oh, they'll drag me back and lock me up. I forgot about that. Naruto thought as he looked around for anything suspicious before pulling out a bottle of water and drinking some up. Then he put it away and stretched. It wasn't long before the sun set and he was on the move again, moving only as fast as his still sore muscles allowed him to. Konoha. Tsunade was stuck once again in the research lab looking over some new poisons that Shizune and her were trying to break down in various parts. She had heard the explosions and a Chunin had come running to Shizune and herself just to tell them not to worry and that for now the village was on lockdown. It made her angry to no end, but she had her duty along with Shizune in the research lab for future reference, and she understood that, which is why she ended up working along with Shizune to the bone for the next 3 days. However, on her desk back at the Senju compound there lied a not-so-innocent-looking envelope waiting to be opened and let out all its secrets.
Naruto. 2 days had passed since he left Konoha. 2 hard days of running non-stop even when his muscles protesting, and now he was almost to the border, just a few meters away from freedom, and in a fast sprint he crossed it as fast as he could. He was now on the border of sand. Suddenly the wide grin that stretched across his face twisted into one of pain and he dropped to the ground in pain, clutching his head with both hands. He felt like his head would explode in a shower of gore and he couldn't stop it. His scream of pain was cut off in his throat when he blacked out. 1 hour later, waking up to a splitting headache was something Naruto had become used to. After all, reading throughout the night about chakra arts had both its pros and cons. However, Naruto had the worst headache yet. His eyes hurt, ears hurt, and most of all he felt like he had been introduced to a hard book cover meeting his face, but checking out by feeling his face he could tell nothing was broken. So as he sat up, suddenly everything came rushing back to him. Mito, the Purple Rock, him being the chosen heir for the Uzumaki clan, their legacy, the prophecy that he didn't care about, and having his memories sealed and the reasons behind getting them sealed. He let out a shaky breath and looked up to the sky and closed his eyes in reminisce, completely understanding why this had been the right decision. Flashback. I'm going to start with the Uzumaki legacy. It all started back just before the 6 paths of Sage died. You see, the 6 parts of Sage had a dream to keep the world in peace, but he knew he was too old to continue doing that, so he passed his dream on to his sons, Indra and Asura. Indra was a prodigy from the start, however Asura was slow learning and was accused of having no talent.
Yet as they grew older, Asura pushed and worked hard to learn the things he did and believed that love and friendship was the key to peace, while Indra never worked as hard as his younger brother and believed power and control is what was needed for peace. When their father died, he chose Asura for his successor because he too believed in love and friendship. However, Indra was enraged and jealous, so he was easily controlled by Black Zetsu, who also changed the table that spoke of the truth, which was passed on to Indra's descendants, the Uchiha. Indra had started a war with Asura in which their descendants carried on, not knowing why they fought in the first place. Asura's descendants the Senju and Uzumaki fought for many years against the Uchiha until Asura's reincarnation Hashirama Senju, my belated husband, was born and decided to start the village of Konoha with Madara Uchiha, Indra's reincarnation, who agreed for his people. They brought about peace to the lands once again until Madara grew jealous that Hashirama was chosen to be Kage and caused chaos. However, his clan abandoned him in his streak of jealousy because they wanted peace. So Hashirama and Madara faced off. However, Madara overstepped his boundaries and controlled the Kyuubi with his eternal Mangekyo Sharingan. So in an act of desperation I used my special chakra chains to seal the Kyuubi within myself. Hashirama ended up winning and Madara apparently died, and Hashirama died in the war. Now once again the cycle of hatred is repeating itself, and according to tales you have been chosen to be Asura's reincarnation and Uchiha Sasuke as Indra's. Mito explained all this without pause, and Naruto's eyes widened a bit comically at the last bit. Me and Makoto Ka-san's younger son Sasuke, Itachi's brother, we gonna end up fighting. How? I don't understand. Why must he be that guy's reincarnation? Why am I Asura's reincarnation? Why? Naruto rambled on until Mito made him keep quiet with a look that made him quiet very quickly. It's just how it is. Not even we know how to predict who becomes the reincarnation. Yes, you might likely fight him, but then again, perhaps the cycle may be broken this time and free the souls of this endless hatred, but I don't know if it will really be possible, so that's not a standing possibility. However, now what I'm about to tell you is the Uzumaki legacy. Asura had 2 children after he had traveled the land and settled down with a young woman who ended up birthing these twins. One was a girl, the other a boy. Their names were Hitomi and Hiro. They both grew up watching their father and uncle fight and also took on their father's dreams. The girl, Hitomi, was talented in manipulation of the earth and could grow trees, make rivers and heal with chakra. The boy Hiro was talented in the art of sealing, swordplay, and possessed a special type of chakra. The two had married off and created their own clans, Senju by Hitomi and Uzumaki by Hiro. While fighting their cousins and distant cousins, Hiro created 2 katanas for himself to use, which was made with his chakra and the strongest metals known to man. One blade as black as a raven, the other as white as snow. Both grips were gold and blood red with 2 little rubes dangling on each end. They both bore the white Uzumaki's swirl and had writing engraved on their blades. Later he created 4 other weapons. Also there is a prophecy: the air of the whirlpool with a great burden will bring about a great change when the eye of the moon endangers the world. That's the prophecy. Mito took a breath after having spoken so much and let Naruto take in what she said. Then I will get stronger and prove to everyone I can do it, and I'll do it all without Minato and Kushina. What about these weapons? Where are they and how can I find them? And how do you know all this? Naruto asked and said, determined get stronger and prove to himself and everyone he can do it without his family. However, Mito cut in quickly when she seen this. Naruto, don't let that be your goal, please. I have seen some go down a road like that and it's not pretty. Make your own goals and build bonds, make friends, try to be happy and overcome the grudge you hold for your birth family, make your own family with friends and allies. The weapons are all scattered around the elemental nations. However, Hiro's own twin katanas lie in an underwater cave at the bottom of Uzu's biggest whirlpool. You can also learn sealing by spending a few months in the Uzu ruins. I'm sure you will learn much. However, I have not been to Uzu since I was married to Hashirama, so I don't know how things are there. So be careful. There should also be a journal about the other weapons and how to find them. Also, Uzu is on an island in Nami no Kuni. And I know all this because it's all in the journal in the cave with the katanas. Once she was done telling him all this, she smiled lightly at the boy before her, who looked between amazement, curious and irritated. Okay. I'll try, but I dunno if I can after all they have done and all the times they ignored me for my sisters. So I can't promise, but I'll try and I'll find the cave with the katanas and that journal. And I will try to be happy as well as protect the people I care for. he said proudly, and she smiled once again, only wider than the last one. One more thing. There is a chamber where the most treasured things are held and no one knows about it other than the clan head and the heir. She then went on telling him about what happened to Kushina and how he should choose the right steps, all things only passed on from one clan head to the next, which put Naruto in a more somber mood when she told him that in Konoha there is a purple rock that contains most of her chakra and half of her soul, and that his memories will come back of this place with her as soon as he has chosen the right decision. Which was leaving to get stronger and prove himself, but also not to act upon his grudge against his family and those who aided his sisters by snapping like he would if he continued in Konoha. Naruto sat listening to what was going on and what was going to happen when he gets sent back. I can't believe this. And no one knew this, only from one clan head to the next. And when I get back, my memories of this place will be sealed until I choose of my own will what my next steps will be, and if I don't choose the right one, my memories and my heir rights will be wiped clean like my mother. Also, there's a glowing purple rock that you sealed a lot of your chakra, including half of your soul in? And it will all come back to me the minute I make the right decision. Then now that you told me everything, I guess you going to send me back? Naruto asked. Why was his life so troublesome? In the realm of the living, Shikamaru sneezed. Yes, but before that, remember what I said about the prophecy, and you will regain what you have lost, and remember you are the heir, so get stronger on your own terms. Now Naruto, are you ready to go back? Mito asked, and he nodded, remembering the prophecy she told him that he was a part of. After he nodded, Mito leaned forward and placed a kiss on his forehead and watched him slowly get a blank and confused look before fading away. Flashback end. The dazed look in Naruto's eyes faded away slowly as he stood up and pulled out the map he made and looked it over briefly for Nami no Kuni, because that was his destination right now. To get to Uzu and find that twin katanas in the journal, then learn more about Fuinjutsu, the art of sealing, and also find and seal everything of value in Uzu into a scroll so no one can stumble across the land and just claim the which is not theirs. He put the map away and moved in the direction stated on the map. Konoha. Senju Tsunade was not a woman with time on her hands, because she was always busy with this and with that, and she only just got home, only to find an envelope on her desk signed by Naruto. So naturally, wanting to see why her son figure left a letter instead of coming to see her personally. After all, she did give him an estimate as to when she'll be free again after looking over poisons and finishing her paperwork. So she picked it up, yet as she opened it a sense of dread filled her to the brim. To Tsunade-ka-san, if you are reading this, it means that 3 days has passed since I left the village. Which was the reasons there was explosions, that was because of me to use as a distraction to get out of Konoha and Fire Country with pursuits. I am sorry to leave behind those who care for me, but after finding out my career and dreams have been crushed by my family and trying to hide it from me, I just can't stand that anymore. All the lies and hiding things from me, it was honestly the last straw for me. I just want to get away from it all, but don't worry about me, I will survive and I will keep my dreams. Maybe someday I will see you and the others again. I love you and I will miss all of you a lot, and don't look for me. P.S. Tell Makoto-ka-san I'm sorry I won't be there when the baby is born. Love. Naruto. Tsunade was in tears as she read this letter over and over again. Words just could not find their way out her mouth, and she let out a choked sob, dropping the letter and stumbling back just as Shizune opened the door. Tsunade didn't even realize Shizune had been knocking for the past few minutes on her door until she had opened the door and rushed to Tsunade asking what was wrong, but as the tears fell she could only stare at the letter on the floor. Shizune, seeing where her mentor's gaze was, she went to the letter and picked it up and read it and let out her own sob as tears fell, and ran out the house and compound, heading to the Hokage Tower. Hokage Tower. Minato was currently in a meeting with the council discussing a few details about the attack 3 days ago. Jiraiya and Kushina stood to his sides as he addressed the clan heads who had to bring their wives along and the civilian heads who did the same. Itachi, Shishu, Kakashi and Enko stood in the shadows in their Anbu uniforms. So after looking through everything, we have come to the conclusion that the attack, Minato never got to finish, as Shizune knocked down the doors with brute strength that she hardly used and walked right up to him with tears falling from her eyes before slamming a letter down on his desk, almost breaking it. You miserable excuse of parents, how could you let this happen? This was shouted out by Shizune as she gripped his collar and pointed down at the letter. When Kushina came to pull her away, she backhanded her, and the mark quickly turning blue while everyone in the room was looking shocked. This is not the sweet soft Shizune they knew, because she had a murderous aura around her. You want to know who caused the explosions? Read it out loud for everyone to hear. She screamed at him and he was so shocked he quickly obeyed her and picked up the letter to read it. To Tsunade Ka-san, if you are reading this, it means that 3 days has passed since I left the village. Which was the reasons there was explosions that was because of me to use as a distraction to get out of Konoha and Fire Country with pursuits. I am sorry to leave behind those who care for me, but after finding out my career and dreams have been crushed by my family and trying to hide it from me, I just can't stand it anymore. All the lies and hiding things from me, it was honestly the last straw for me. I just want to get away from it all. But don't worr vibe and I will keep my dreams. Maybe someday I will see you and the others again. I love you and I will miss all of you a lot. And don't look for me. P.S. Tell Makoto Ka-san I'm sorry I won't be there when the baby is born. Love. Naruto. Minato only realized what he just read after he uttered his only son's name, and he also realized he still had a meeting going on. Minato, Kushina. What in the world is wrong with you? Your only son. My godson. Kami-sama. You have forsaken your own son. Jiraiya yelled at his disciple in anger and disapproval, completely forgetting there were others in the room because he was simply too angry. The Toad Sage briefly recalled figuring the Chosen One was his godson and not someone else because of the similar things that old Toad has said that reminded him of Naruto. The room quickly went into an uproar when everything finally settled in. Shizune still wore her angry face, so did a very pregnant Makoto, while Katsume and Bawako stood back with deep frowns on their faces. Meanwhile, Kushina was crying as she backed up against the wall and slid down holding her head in her hands. Things just went from bad to terrible. If only your son meant as your daughters do to you, maybe he'd still be here. Makoto yelled at Kushina while the tears fell furiously down her face and her pale skin was flushed red with anger. Minato and Kushina felt their own tears fall with shock at this revelation, which would soon be one of many to come. It's been 2 weeks since Naruto left Konoha and he was finally stopping for another rest after all, since he'd been trying to hide his trail by moving along Suna's borders to get to Nami no Kuni, which was on the opposite side of Konoha. It had been truly tiring, and after so long he hoped to get to Uzu no Kuni fast. Going around Konoha was not fun for the Uzumaki, and he had to take a break every few hours even while hiding and trying not to get caught by Konoha or Suna, let alone any other shinobi. Yes. Civilization. Finally, Naruto exclaimed as he seen walls to a small village near to Nami. His clothes were smeared with dirt and had tears here and there. He also had sand laying in his hair, yet he wore the biggest grin for the first time in forever. He was so happy to finally be able to get a rest to relax his sore and tired muscles from all the running and moving around Konoha and invading scouts and teams to get him back. So as Naruto made his way to the small village near Nami, not knowing the dangers that awaits him that would change him in many ways but also earn him a new friend who would accompany him on his journey for the next few years. Konoha. Back at the Namikaze compound, Kushina sat at the kitchen table staring blankly at the empty white wall next to the stove. Her eyes were red and puffy, and her face was swollen from crying so much. She wore a depressed and a dazed-out look as if remembering something of the past. Flashback after the letter was revealed to Kushina and Minato by Shizune, and they got over the shock of the letter. Minato made haste and dismissed the council that was angry and in a panic so that they could talk more in private about Naruto. So wiping any tears away, he quickly flashed all of them away, which included Shizune, Jiraiya, himself and his wife. They next appeared in the Namikaze family's living room.
Shizune, please tell us what's going on. Why would our son leave? He has everything he needs here. Minato rambled while Kushina blew her nose in a tissue. Jiraiya stood against the wall and watched with a frown on his face. He was doing his best to control his emotions after that outburst he had earlier.
Shizune, I think you should tell them all of their mistakes because clearly they have yet to realize it on their own. Even with their shock of their only son, they have forsaken and pushed away, making him run away. Jiraiya's voice, which was strained with anger and pain, called Shizune out of her rage-filled thoughts and making her nod slowly and wiping away her angry and sad-filled tears. Shizune, please tell us the truth about my baby boy, please. Kushina cried harder, begging Shizune with her red-rimmed eyes and flushed face from crying so long. Minato walked up to his wife and hugged her while keeping his own tears at bay. Kushina might put up a tough persona, but she has a fragile heart. Naruto. He was always smart, very observant for a child his age. From the moment I laid my eyes on him, I knew he was going to be something great in the future. Since he was born, we've noticed you always overlooked him for the girls. We thought you'd start including him when he got older, but our hopes were dashed when you ignored him more and more, especially after he told you that every time the girls slept next to him, he was getting hurt." Shizune paused as tears filled her eyes once more and her throat choked on the words. She looked at Jiraiya before continuing. "Tsunade-sama and I checked him out after overhearing you talk about him complaining. We found some kind of chakra that wasn't his in his system. It was stretching his chakra coils and it was doing something else like poison. We were going to tell you, but then we heard that you didn't want to hear about anything about that anymore. Tsunade-sama tried to make you think, but you brushed it off, so we kept quiet. That's when your daughters and every other child started pranking and blamed it on Naruto. You never heard him out, always believing the girls and others over your son. Finally he made friends with Itachi, Hinata and Neji. They couldn't always be there with him, but they were good to him when they seen him. The Uchihas, Tsunade-sama, Jiraiya-sama and I become something of a family, but we were always busy because there is so much we all have to do around the village. Everything was going wrong and none of us could make you see because Naruto made us promise not to say anything to you. Despite all of these problems of favoring the girls, he managed to study and teach himself how to do jutsu, and he did it with his brilliant mind. But now he's gone, all because you couldn't tell him the truth." Shizune was back to a sobbing mess at this point. Kushina was no better as she and Minato finally realized all the problems they caused by favoring Noriko and Nanami over Naruto. "That pain he was talking about, do you have anything left over from the observations you gave him? I think I might know what that pain was caused by if it happened every time the girls slept next to him, but I have to see before anything else. The girls might have been using him as a chakra rod for the Kyuubi. If that is true, then the next time the fox gives its hosts a surge to make them stronger to use its chakra when they older, there might be big problems, especially if this has been happening since they babies." Jiraiya's voice cut through the silence and Minato and Shizune's eyes widened. "We drove our own son away, Minato. Oh Kami, please Naruto, come back, come back. We'll try and fix things." Kushina cried out to the heavens while struggling in her husband's arms, which tightened around her as he too cried. His wife finally collapsed against him, sobbing loudly. "Shizune, let's go, we'll come back another time. Let them think for now, let's go check on Tsunadeheim and see how she's doing." This was said as Jiraiya helped her stand and she nodded, and both of them left the compound, leaving broken parents behind. End of flashback. Kushina went to the cabinet and pulled out a bottle of sake and poured some out for herself with trembling hands and sat back down on the chair by the table so she drowned the first glass in a few seconds that it would make Tsunade proud. She wanted to drown all her problems and mistakes. Later they would talk to Noriko and Nanami about their punishment and hopefully about the chakra situation, but not before she slapped the lights out of them. Naruto. Naruto reached the entrance of the village and immediately he felt something was wrong. It was a really small village and it also looked really poor. Walking slowly into the village, he seen a bunch of guys. Sue had short black hair and she was cry out about something or someone, but he couldn't hear what she was saying. Naruto crept slowly away. As much as he'd love to help, he couldn't because he wasn't strong enough, especially since he'd been running and hiding so long and he didn't want to make things worse than they already were. As he tried to creep away, he suddenly hit something hard and he turned around only to come face to face with one of the bandits, possibly the leader of the group. "Hey boys! Look what we found. Let's see if he has anything on him," the dark brown-headed, bearded leader of the bandits boomed with a laugh, lifting Naruto off the ground by the scruff of his neck. He eyed the black bag on Naruto's back and he grinned with a glint in his eyes. Konoha. A few days ago, Noriko and Nanami sat in the family room. Their parents sat opposite them and stared at them unwavering. Nanami shifted uncomfortably on the couch next to her sister. The whole situation was weird for them. Their parents never stared at them that way ever. It's more of a Naruto situation because he was always the one in these types of situations, not them, so it was unsettling. "Noriko, Nanami, we called you today because we have found out something. We have found out that you have wronged your brother many times in the past, and it's sad that we have just found out about this now only. So me and your mother have come to a suitable punishment for you too," Minato said solemnly to his daughters, and their eyes widened while his face betrayed no emotions. Noriko was the first one to blow a gasket. "What? We did nothing to that loser. He's the one always complaining and pulling pranks, not us. Why don't you punish that idiot? Naruto, where are you? Come take your punishment. How dare he say anything wrong about us?" Nariko spat out in rage, her face red as a tomato with anger and hate. Snap. Snap. Naruto's not here, he ran away because of us.
I never raised you like this. Who are you? You are no daughters of mine.
My daughters would love their brother, not hate him. They'd care for him, not blame things on him. No children of mine would use their sibling as a chakra rod.
How dare you? You two have brought dishonor to our family. And so you will be punished accordingly. After all, you are two of the people who has made him run away. Now we'll never see him again thanks to this family. Kushina snapped at Nariko and Nanami after slapping them across their faces. Nariko's mouth was agape. A purple bruise was forming on her right cheek and a similar bruise was forming on Nanami's left cheek.
Kushina, let's go. We have more important things to do, like get Kakashi's report on the search for our son. Leave them to rethink their actions towards their brother. When we get back, we'll give them their punishment. Minato told his wife, pulling her away. Soon they both left and the girls were alone. Nanami crumbled first.
Oh Nariko, nay, what have we done? Nanami cried out with wide eyes as the tears finally pooled over, as if it would help the situation they were in. Nariko crumbled next into a pile of limbs with wide eyes, as if only now realizing the damage done on their family. Not in their entire lives have they ever thought their brother will run away because of what they did. This was truly a wake-up call for them.
Nanami-chan. I don't know. I'm so sorry. Nariko whispered, putting a hand on her cheek, touching the bruise and looking over at her sister's forlorn expression. She hugged her sister and pat her back. I really dunno. I'm so sorry, Naruto-ni. I'm so sorry, she kept whispering.
Naruto, our favorite blonde boy with black streaks, was running to get away, but that wasn't working out well for him because his muscles were all sore and tired from running for so long in the past few days, and that's what made him stumble and fall, which unsurprisingly led to him begin loomed over by the bandits' leader once again. This man was really full of himself.
Let's see you try that stunt again, you brat. Boys, I want him dead by the hour. I won't allow some snot-nosed brat stop my raids. We have women to use and men to kill and beat, so let's get this shit out the way. Now. The leader yelled at his men with anger and watched satisfied as his men scrambled to do his bidding. His smirk widened as he watched his men crowd around the boy, beating him before killing him. However, as Naruto's eyes widened, inside his body his blood was pumping hard and rushing along with his chakra running to his eyes. The different cords behind his eyes began shifting and changing at a fast rate. For a moment Naruto's vision went black and all he could think and imagine was the tall inhuman figures looming over him trying to kill him with weapons. Not a minute later, when his vision returned, he made eye contact with one of the guys coming to beat then kill him. The guy froze up and his weapon, which was a spike, fell upright with him falling straight onto it. Blood. The guy's eyes were wide and unseeing without life left in him. Naruto's eyes widened and made eye contact with some of the other bandits, and each of them fell either into their weapons or unconscious. At first Naruto sat confused, then he realized that he was unconsciously releasing chakra into his eyes. His eyes rolled back into his head and he passed out. He just realized he had killed today using genjutsu from his eyes. Konoha. Minato sat behind his desk reading the reports Suna Shinobi and Kakashi gave him. He let out a frustrated sigh. Really, his son was too smart for his own good. Where was he heading anyway? That was the question running in the Hokage's head as he reread the reports over again and again, checking if he missed something or anything. He put down the reports and massaged his temples. He could feel a migraine coming on slowly. He felt like such a bad Hokage since he can't even find his own son who was hiding. Flashback. Sensei. I'm sorry, but we can't find Naruto anywhere. We even had help from Suna Shinobi that was doing border scouting and we still turned up with nothing. Pakun and his pack of dogs also looked, but we still got nothing. All we know is that he had been on the borders of Suna and Konoha about 2 weeks ago. I'm really sorry, Minato-sensei. We all tried really hard. Kakashi told him and set down the reports for him to look through. End of flashback. Naruto. Naruto was found by the young woman who was the one crying out about something or someone back at the village. After none of the bandits came back, she got worried for the little boy, so she went to look for him to see if he was okay, but she had never in her life expected to see all the bandits unconscious or dead laying on the ground all around the young blonde boy with black streaks who had saved her by pure accident. She was slightly horrified, so she went to check out the boy if he was okay or not. Konoha. Nariko lay upon her bed staring at her ceiling in deep thought about what had happened a few days ago and how she got slapped. She thought about the brother she had made miserable and the parents Nanami and her unconsciously manipulated into neglecting said brother. Nariko was at a loss for what to do. Her brother left, and it was all Nanami and her fault. She felt so helpless. Sure, she didn't completely love her brother and she was jealous of him, but she never saw herself as a bad person. I wish I could change what I have caused, but I can't. The weight of her words hung heavy in the air of her room. A few tears slipped out her eyes as she now saw herself as the monster who tormented her brother's dreams and stood in way of his goals. She wanted to change that image, but she knew it was true and she could only try and atone for her deeds. It will be Naruto's choice to forgive her and them when they see him again. Naruto. The young woman decided to take him back to her village and into her home because she couldn't let the child lay there where he had been laying between the bandits and all the blood. When she got home, her younger sister, who was about 6, was waiting for her by their kitchen window. Ne-chan. I saw those bandits harassing you. And that boy my age stopped them. The little girl yelled. She had blood-red hair and dark forest green eyes. It was obvious that the two sisters didn't share any resemblance, but that didn't mean much to either sister because even though they were clearly not blood-related, they were just as close as sisters normally are. What? You were watching that? Oh, Akari-chan. I'm so sorry you had to see that. But now we have to attend to this poor boy and help him. The now identified Tasuki told her sister, who only now noticed the boy in her arms, who drew the attention away from her big sister when those bandits were worrying her. Her eyes looked at him curiously and in slight wonder at his bravery. That's the same boy from earlier. What happened to him, Ne-chan? Did he get hurt? Did those bandits hurt him? Akari shot out questions as she ran to help her Oni-chan with the boy. They brought him to Akari's room and put him on the bed before Tasuki told Akari to get a bucket of warm water and a cloth to wipe off the blood and dirt he had on him. They tentatively cleaned him and took all his clothes except his underpants to wash and mend so he can wear them again when he wakes up. For now though, Tasuki had Akari watch him while she cooked them some food for dinner and hung up the black-streaked blonde's clothes to get dry properly. They also found his black bag and cleaned it off and putting it one side in Akari's room. The next morning, Naruto stirred in the bed and his messy black-streaked hair fell out of his face to show his violet amethyst eyes opening slowly and blinking in confusion before realization kicked in and he remembered what happened. He turned deathly pale and he felt like throwing up. Just then Akari and Tasuki walked in and rushed to him, seeing as he was now awake, and sat him up, then gave him a glass of water. Hey Whisker-kun. How are you feeling? What's your name? Why did you have blood on you? Did the bandits leave? Why were you alone? Where's your family? Why weren't they with you? Do you have siblings? Why are you looking so pale? Are you sick? Is your tummy sore? Your eyes are so pretty. Tasuki Oni-chan, isn't his eyes pretty? Akari interrogated him without giving him a chance to respond before shooting off another question. Akari-chan. Let him answer one at a time. I'm sure he is trying to sort out his thoughts. Tasuki reprimanded her adopted sister with a sigh while shaking her head in amusement with her sister's outbursts. Akari had the decency to blush in embarrassment at getting scolded in front of the boy they were nursing yesterday afternoon, who had finally woken up. My name's Naruto. Thanks for helping me even though I didn't deserve it, Naruto said softly, letting his hair shade his eyes that were full of tears of remorse, remembering he killed those men with his eyes unknowingly with genjutsu. He felt so ashamed of himself, thinking that Katsume would be so angry and ashamed of him for killing the bandits with the art of genjutsu that her clan used. Naruto-kun, you didn't do anything wrong. It was those bad men who were bandits that raids our village that were wrong. You saved me from disgrace when those men went after you instead of me. Tasuki argued with a frown at his lifeless-like attitude, and Akari nodded besides her with a huge smile on her face. I killed them. I didn't mean to. My fear. They looked into my eyes. I didn't mean to use genjutsu on them. Just I was so scared and it just happened. From my eyes. I was so confused. But I felt my chakra in my eyes. And I just knew, Naruto said before he broke down in tears for what he did, while the two girls were shocked at what he told them. They didn't know how to make him feel better, but they didn't look at him differently either. Naruto-kun. That is so unfortunate that this happened to you at such a young age. I don't know if this will help, but those men are the same ones who killed our parents in front of us a year ago. They enjoyed hurting our parents and laughed when they stabbed them to death. So they were bad people, and if you killed them with this genjutsu that you accidentally used with your eyes in your fearful state of mind, then you saved us all from their wicked nature of killing for fun. To cry and feel the weight of doing something wrong means that you showing remorse for what you've done. My birth parents told me this, and they were both ninja once, but they died by the hands of ninja when I was 9. I'm 21 now, and I still believe in what they said even after I was adopted into this family at the age of 11, and they always cared for me as if I was their own daughter, even when Akari was born from my adoptive parents 5 years ago, and when they died by the hands of those bandits last year, then entrusted me with their only blood-related daughter. Tasuki told her story to Naruto, who listened quietly with wide eyes. I'm sorry, Tasuki-san. Akari-san. Thank you for sharing your story with me and making me see clearer. I understand now that is the life of a shinobi. I will keep your words in my heart. Naruto said, wiping away his tears. Even though he still felt guilty and ashamed, he knew that he'd have to figure out everything as he goes along, but he also knew he couldn't mope around because he had goals that he had set for himself and he wasn't about to stray from his path. Naruto-kun? Are you okay now? You not so pale anymore? And your eyes don't look so sad anymore? Will you stay with us, Naruto-kun? Akari lightened the room with her questions, and Naruto found himself smiling lightly. Tasuki just shook her head in amusement of her adopted sister, who had started grinning at him again, the somber mood getting to her. Hi. I'm feeling better now, Akari-san, but I can't stay with the two of you. You have done enough for me, and I must leave again to get stronger so I can see my goals through to the end. Naruto told them, looking down at his hands in his lap, bowing his head in gratitude to the two sisters who had looked after him while he had been unconscious. Huh? But you can't leave just yet. You just came here yesterday. Please don't leave so soon, Naruto-kun. Tasuki-ne-chan, tell him he can't leave yet. Akari nagged with a pout on her face, looking at Tasuki, who patted her head with a sigh and smiled softly down at her younger sister. I'm sure Naruto-kun needs to rest up for at least a week before he leaves, so until then he'll be staying with us and we'll take care of him, and I'm sure the two of you can play around and become friends before he has to leave again. Is that acceptable? Tasuki told her sister while Naruto's mouth went agape, and Akari nodded happily at her sister with a wide grin. Yay! We gonna have so much fun, and I'm gonna show you all around the village, and then we can play games and we can go swim, and oh, Tasuki-ne-chan makes awesome food, and we gonna make you all better before you leave again, and oh, everything is gonna be so awesome and Akari never got to finish as Tasuki cut her off. And we going to leave so Naruto-kun can get some rest and something to eat, since I'm sure he's famished and in need of something to eat. Say bye to Naruto-kun for now. Tasuki laughed as her sister's face turned tomato red and puffed out her cheeks before nodding and saying she'll see him later in the day to ask some questions again. Konoha. Minato punched the training post at his training field in his compound with frustration and stress. His knuckles were bloody and his clothes were stuck to him from sweat, and his blue eyes were ringed red from tears, and he collapsed onto the ground, running a hand through his blonde hair with his eyes closed. He felt so angry at himself because of his family that was falling apart into tiny pieces, and he felt he was utterly helpless to do anything about it. His only son was crippled because of him. His only son had suffered negligence because of him. His only son left because of him. He only had one son. And now he was gone. Because of him, and they couldn't find him anywhere. Senju compound. Different pictures of a smiling blonde boy with violet amethyst eyes littered the floors everywhere. He was in every picture with different poses. Empty sake bottles littered the floors in piles here and there. In many of the pictures 5 women were always at least once in every picture. One with blonde hair, one with dark brown hair, one with dark navy blackish blue hair, one with graying brown hair, and one with dark graying hair. If names were to be added to each of them, it would go in this order: Tsunade, Shizune, Makoto, Katsum, and Bawako. In the lounge we would find 2 of the 5 women laying drunk on the floor, this being Tsunade and Shizune. Hospital. Bawako sat in the head medic office behind the desk. She wore a frown as she looked over reports and files for the glowing purple rock that rests in the research lab, which is the size of a boulder that is utterly impenetrable. After all, they tried everything to break that thing apart. Something nagged at the back of her head that this was familiar somehow. She let out a sigh and put down the papers. She looked out the window onto the Hokage monument and gazed at her late husband's face sculptured upon the mountain before her eyes slid to the fourth face and her frown deepened as she thought about the certain little blonde that looked almost identical with his blonde hair to the man she had lost much respect for. Everything so far had gone wrong when the girls were given their way more than. She turned away from the window because she had better things that had to be done, important things. It would be pointless to ponder and point fingers at others. Kurama clan compound. Oba-san? Are you okay? Do you want some tea? Can I do anything for you, Oba-san? A little red-headed girl with bright dark brown eyes asked the elder sitting by the window watching the birds. This little girl was the elder's granddaughter and also a girl who had a lot of raw potential and enhanced genjutsu prowess that could use genjutsu that affect the body or bodies of the person or people her genjutsus are used on. Hi. I'm fine, Yakumo-chan. Just thinking on a few things I hope to see in the future if I live until then. Why don't you get me the tea for now then, my child? This old bat is terribly parched and we wouldn't want me coughing my lungs up on this beautiful redwood floors now, would we? The elder asked her granddaughter, who immediately shook her head and rushed off to the kitchen for the traditional tea set. The old woman's honey-colored eyes wrinkled at the corners as they sparkled with mythical amusement with a pinch of sadness hidden in her eyes. Katsume Kurama couldn't deny that the future would be a sight to behold if she lived long enough. Uchiha compound. The head of the clan and his wife sat outside in silence. Neither spoke their thoughts, yet both spoke their mind. As confusing as it would seem, it has been like this for the past few days between the couple. This is the scene their son, Itachi, walked into with his heavy heart. Mikoto glanced at her eldest child, as did Fugaku. Both looked questionably at him, awaiting his report. Itachi-chan, please tell me you've got good news for us, please? Mikoto pleaded to her son with tears in her eyes while Fugaku just held her hand in support with his own. Itachi inwardly winced. Naruto leaving had taken its toll on both his mother and father, including him. He took a breath. He might as well inform them and get it over with for now. He hated seeing his mother like this, especially since she is pregnant. Ka-san, Sama. It is to my utter disappointment to inform you that we have still found absolutely nothing with regards to Naruto-kun's whereabouts, and for now Minato-sama has had to decrease the search for a time being. We just know that there had been signs he was on Suna's borders, but furthermore nothing else has been found. I am sorry to disappoint. Itachi spoke to them in a soft but firm tone that held respect. Mikoto bowed her head and whispered her thanks to her son while Fugaku sighed and nodded in defeat. Despite being the clan head, he had his moments that he could care less about composure and status. Itachi took that as his cue to leave his mother and father alone again. Namikaze compound. Nanami sat by the koi pond and looked down at her reflection. Her cheek still stung, as if the bruise that had healed up was still there from a few days ago, but she guessed it was just one of those things. Nanami watched as the fishes swam across her reflection in the pond, and her thoughts started wandering to that of her only brother who left them because they had all been so terrible to him. Noriko and herself had been the main causes, she was sure of that. After all, they had treated him like trash, and now look at where it has gotten them. Naruto ni, I wish I could apologize, but I can't because I know I was jealous and I still am. Everyone saw you as a coming protege, but Noriko and I didn't like that. I am ashamed that we always were so evil to you, but the next time we see each other I will apologize deeply for our family's actions towards you, but I don't expect you to forgive us. I know everyone else will, but I don't, because even though we will try to be better, we will never fully succeed because this is who we are. Nanami's thoughts were deep and very intelligent, but then again it's expected when your father was a protege. Naruto. Our black-streaked blonde lay awake staring deeply at the ceiling if the house of the two girls he'd befriended accidentally. He thought on everything so far that he had done. From the perfect escape plan succeeding to the words of Tasuki-san after he killed those bandits and Akari-san's total look over of what he'd done even if it was accidental. Both of these girls had given him much to think over for a while, and he needed to start training again. He didn't know what to make of the dark-headed woman with short hair and gray eyes. Tasuki-san was emotionally stronger than anyone he'd ever seen, and he could only hope to one day be the same. Yet he wondered how she managed it all, because not only did her biological parents die by an enemy, her adoptive parents died in front of her, and she is helpless to do anything other than trying to protect their biological daughter. Akari-san was another mystery on her own. The girl his age was so bubbly and upbeat even though she witnessed her parents' death. He wondered what made her keep being happy despite the terrible thing of watching your parents die before you at the tender age of 5. She was simply at ease with everything, and you could see she took after her adopted sister.
Naruto sighed and closed his eyes as his brain tried to work out how he had managed to use genjutsu through his eyes, but unfortunately for him he could only come up with one answer, and that would be that the chemicals he had used have caused this, and now he could only wonder what other changes the chemicals did to his body. Unknown to the violet-eyed boy, this had all been the doing of the green chakra that had become part of him and his chakra system.
Konoha. Hyuga compound. Hinata sat quietly in the garden with Neji. Her mother, who would normally sit with her, was busy because she was pregnant and due to give birth in 5 months' time. Hinata's fingers moved slowly as she made a flower crown. Neji sat to her left side and watched her with clear moon-colored eyes. Hinata let out a long huff of air when her crown broke again for the 4th time. She had been trying to take her mind off of recent things, but she couldn't help it. Hinata-sama. Is everything okay? Are you getting another vision? Or are you thinking on something troubling? Neji asked as politely as he could while looking at her questionably. Hinata looked up at the pale blue sky, not a cloud in sight, and the sun shone brightly as if all was happy and perfect. She turned away from the sky and looked at her cousin. Neji-ni-san. I can't help it, and I keep thinking about Naruto-kun and the reasons he left us all. I miss seeing him around us. But I can tell without a doubt that in the future. Hinata's words rung in the air, carrying away all its secrets. She looked at Neji and smiled. Unknown place. The same man as before sat with a book and on the title diary of Uzumaki Kushina. He chuckled gleefully and his dark eyes could be seen glinting wickedly. A door on the side of this dark room opened, sending a light in the room, and you could now make out the color of his eyes. They were a dark purple, almost black. A wicked grin spread across his lips, for the only features shown in the light were his lips and dark purple eyes. A tall, lean figure walked in the room with file. The figure kneeled on the floor in a deep bow. My lord. I have all the data collected together just like you asked of me. There were no problems on the way either. I hope you are satisfied? The figure, now identified as male by his deep voice, spoke in a respectful tone to the other man that was in the room. A sinister laugh was heard before a sound of liquid hitting the floors and walls was heard, followed by a thumping sound on the floor. Glowing purple eyes peered down at the dead man on the floor. Indeed I am. A few pieces have yet to move on this chessboard. Our favorite mysterious male voice of malice was heard as it rung throughout the hallways and the candles flickered. Glowing purple eyes flashed in sick, fascinated amusement at the dead body before him and his thoughts about his plans for the future. 3 weeks had passed since Naruto first met Tasuki and Akari, who later introduced him to the rest of the villagers as the person who got rid of the bandits that were raiding the village. The village itself was nice. They had a few shops and 1 or 2 restaurants. The villagers were very friendly and kind to him, or maybe it was because he saved them from the bandits who raided the town frequently. Despite that, Naruto enjoyed being in the village itself with all its people. The villagers had at first been hesitant because he was so young, but soon accepted it as fact and praised him, calling him their little hero. The village children all wanted to be his friends and he accepted their friendships with a smile. However, every night for the first week he had sat up thinking upon everything he had done so far, and when he went to sleep he was plagued by nightmares until one night Akari started helping him get over his night terrors. However, nothing was as terrifying as the situation he currently found himself in. Akari-chan, please stop crying. Tasuki-ne-chan, what do I do? Please help me. I dunno what to do. What should I do? Tasuki-ne-chan. Naruto was currently being used as a tissue for poor Akari-chan, who was utterly distraught over one fact, and that is he had to leave in a day or so to continue to Uzu, and she didn't want him to go. So she was currently begging him to stay with her or take her with him, and he just couldn't remove the crying girl from his shirt. Whether it be from manners or from lack of strength, he wasn't quite sure. Naruto-kun. I'm sure you can figure out what to do. You are a smart boy, aren't you? Use your intelligence. Anyway. See you two later. I'll be at the market. I have some things to buy, so be good children and behave yourselves while I'm gone. And with that, Tasuki left him to the horror that was a snotty, sobbing Akari. Naruto stared at the door in horror when Tasuki left. He began sweating fast. He would be turned blue soon. He knew by Akari's death grip around his chest because he couldn't even breath properly. It was as if he was trying to strangle him to death and not actually begging him to stay. Naruto-kun. Please don't go. Stay here, or take me with. Help me, Naruto-kun. Help. Konoha. The blonde Hokage sat behind his desk looking over paperwork and mission reports. He had been slacking off just a bit since his son ran away from Konoha. 3 weeks ago he sent out a message to all the ninja villagers in the elemental nations stating if they see his son they must immediately notify him and keep his son until someone from Konoha fetches him. That was all he could do now, that and waiting. Namikaze compound. Two girls sat together on a bench in the gardens of their compound. Not a word was said between them but enough was thought. A number of thoughts ran through their heads. The main one they shared was the fact that they had to be put into a coma so that their bodies could survive the chakra surges the Kyuubi was giving them. Flashback. Ka-san, where are we going? To-san, what's going on? Nanami questioned in her confusion. Noriko, who was walking besides her, looked at their father for an answer since none came from their mother. Minato just sighed seeing how Kushina wasn't going to answer their questions, since she was doing her best to speak to them as little as possible as punishment for both the girls and herself as their mother. We going to a special chamber so that we can put the two of you in a coma so that we can force the Kyuubi's chakra to surge throughout your bodies so that when the time comes neither of you will die from using its chakra. Do not argue with this is for the best for both of you and the village since you had decided to force your brother through the surges you were supposed to go through. Be happy. The only thing we doing is not allowing you to train for a year and a half for doing what you did and acting how you did. With that Minato ended the conversation with no room for arguments. End of flashback. Naruto. Our favorite black-streaked blonde boy sat on the bed he had been using since he got there. His next stop would be Uzu. He felt sad to leave Tasuki and Akari who has been very good to him. He wished that they would be able to come with him to the Uzu ruins. However, he knew he couldn't ask them to leave their home here, especially since his future journeys will possibly be dangerous. The room door opened and Tasuki walked in with a small sad smile on her face. She placed a bundle of clothes she washed that belonged to him on the bed as she sat next to him. Naruto-kun, Akari doesn't want you to leave us. I won't say stay here with us because I know there is something you wish to fulfill. However, I would like to offer you a companion on your journey. I won't be able to join you, but I believe Akari would be delighted to travel and train with you. She doesn't wish for her Oni-chan to be alone and face dangers by himself. She came to me earlier to plead with me to allow her to go with you and I said I'll only agree if you agree. So Naruto-kun, would you like Akari to join you? Tasuki grinned when she seen his face brighten up with a shocked look and a grin following it. Just then a red tornado burst into the room. Naruto-kun. Please, can I come with you? Take me with. I want to help you, Oni-chan. Akari yelled as she threw herself at Naruto, nearly choking him in the process while she used her best puppy dog eyes on him. Naruto, however, just pulled her off himself and put a frown on his face and crossed his arms before shaking his head as if to say no. Her face fell quickly and tears formed in her eyes while her lips stick out. No, Akari-chan, I would not like to have you join me on my trip to Uzu and wherever else. I would love you to join me and keep me company. And as a training partner, Naruto said with a happy tone and a small smile on his face, but his face was soon turning blue with lack of oxygen because Akari hugged him tightly again in a death grip. Yay! Thank you, Naruto-kun. Tasuki-chan, he said yes. He said yes. Yay! Hooray! When can I pack? Tasuki-ne-chan, what should I take with me? I can take a bag, right, Naruto-kun? Akari was shooting off questions and doing happy dances everywhere, making Naruto grin and Tasuki laugh. Konoha. Tsunade, you can't be serious. You want to leave for half a year. What if something happens? Sorry, Tsunade, but I can't allow you to go again on a drinking and gambling break. If this is to do with my son, and I think it is. What if we find him hurt or something and you not here to help? Things can go very wrong if you aren't here, Naruto stated firmly. He was not going to let this woman leave so suddenly. Whenever she pleases, she should know that they needed her medical expertise in the village. How dare you? I've done nothing but good for you and this village. I saved countless lives and helped birth your children. One of them which you never even noticed until now. You also seem to forget I'm a Sanin and we have permission from the Fire Lord to roam the elemental nations without restrictions as long as we don't partake as high crimes against the nations. So as a matter of fact, you can't keep me here. Tsunade's voice shook with fury as she shook her fist and smashed the desk Minato was seated behind. His face fell for a split second before he sighed and sat back in his chair with a stern look on his face. Fine. You may leave for the 6 months and do what you please, however should we need you back here you have to come back. That's all I ask, otherwise. Look out for Naruto. Minato said. He got up from his chair as Tsunade left and stood by the window looking over Konoha. He didn't even know what to do anymore. Everything was just going wrong and a lot of it was his own fault. Naruto. It was finally the day Naruto would set out to Uzu, and now he had a companion to boot. He was both happy and sad, happy for having someone on his journey with him but sad to go from the village. To him this was strange because when he ran away from Konoha he didn't really feel sad. Sure, he felt a twig of sadness because he'd miss Tsunade and the others who cares for him, but now it was a different story with this village. He might be a very intelligent child, but when it came to his feelings he got confused and lost. Akari was standing on Naruto's right side with her own backpack. She wore a short green dress and black ninja sandals that Naruto borrowed her. She also had her up in a ponytail. Akari was bouncing with excitement and wore a huge smile on her face. She was really happy to go with Naruto Oni-chan on his journey to Uzu and all the other places he was going to. The villagers were all gathered around and Tasuki was standing right in the front of the crowd of people. She was smiling brightly and the sun was shining in the background. They were all at the village entrance to see Naruto and Akari off on their journey. Some of the children looked a bit jealous of the two of them. Now Naruto, I want you two to be careful, okay? Don't put yourselves in unnecessary danger. Tasuki told him in a playful tone, knowing that it was very likely that they would get into trouble, especially since Akari was going with because she is like a very curious kitten. Tasuki could only hope that they didn't die or get too hurt. Okay Tasuki-ne-chan. I promise to protect Akari from any trouble. We'll come visit again, Naruto said with conviction. Akari pulled her tongue out at Tasuki and she rolled her eyes. Naruto smiled at the two of them and their actions. Konoha. Hinata practiced her katas with Neji while her father watched them in contemplation. The clan head thought about the recent events with the Hokage's son, Naruto. This made so much problems since his daughter's gift showed her troublesome things and she was constantly worrying about her only other friend who happened to be Naruto. Hinata, that's enough today. The two of you may leave for now, Hisashi told the two children who just finished off a set of katas. They both bowed and excused themselves quietly like they were taught to. This left the clan head by himself drinking green tea on the patio, letting him continue thinking about the problems. Hyuga compound Hinata's room. Neji-ni-san, don't tell Otoyu-sama, but I had a vision about Naruto-kun. He was standing at huge red gates at a village entrance, but the gates and walls looked damaged and run down, but at the top there was a sign like our village sign, only it was the Uzumaki symbol. I think I know where Naruto-kun is going, and in my vision there was a red-headed girl too. Hinata said excitedly to Neji with a smile on her face. Neji wore a face of shock before he also smiled. And where is he going? Uzu no Taisho, the home of the Uzumaki clan. Let's not tell anyone then, since it was his choice to leave. I won't, Ni-san. Let's train hard to see him again then, Ni-san. Yes, let's do so, Hinata-sama. Naruto's Pav. It has been 2 months since I left the village I helped out with Akari. Being 8 years old is tough to do such things in the little amount of time it has been since I left Konoha. I am happy to have Akari with me as my companion as well as my new friend Kurosuke. We met accidentally and became friends, but it took time for him to trust us. Let's see. Flashback. The boat rocked as I sat down. Akari slept while I watched out for anything. The weather was calm for now, but the closer we get the more rough the sea will get. At least that's what I found out about Uzu. They are surrounded by whirlpools and only an Uzumaki's blood can stop the whirlpools until you get to the island. Even on the map it shows swirls where the whirlpools are, so I wasn't expecting anything, so it is pretty easy to fall asleep and so my eyes closed. I didn't know there's anyone out here. That was a male's voice. I laid very still. I wonder who this is. I hope he doesn't have any bad intentions. Those were my thoughts until I got kicked in the arm and my eyes shot open. I was hardly expecting what I saw. A boy no older than Akari and myself loomed over me. He had pitch black hair and ice blue eyes and his clothes looked slightly worn out. Hey, I'm speaking to you. Who are you? Why are you going in the direction of Uzu? The strange boy spoke to me and I found myself wondering who he is and why was he out here by himself. My name's Uzumaki Naruto. I'm going to Uzu to train and learn about the Uzumaki clan. Who are you? And how did you get onto our boat in the middle of the sea? I spoke my thoughts for the moment and I watched as his eyes narrowed at me as if looking for some kind of lie in my words. I'm Katsuno Kurosuke. I'm running away from people that is trying to kill me.
I ran on the water and came across your boat. Kurosuke told me while he stared me in the eyes. I really don't know what to do in such a situation. Should I help or would it cause more trouble for me in the end? I don't even know if I can trust this guy.
So you don't have bad intentions towards us? You just willing to move on? I asked. It's pretty obvious this guy doesn't trust me either, so I won't beat around the bush. I might be 8, but even I know to be cautious of strangers and people. That was the plan, but since you going to Uzu, which is really hard to get into even though it's in ruins, I decided to go with you. Besides, you look like a shrimp. And I need a place to hide and get stronger too, said Kurosuke. Huh? Is this person serious? We just met, how could he just decide something like that? What? How can you just decide something like that? We just met, I don't even know you, and I'm not a shrimp for your information. The words just flew from my mouth, it was as if my tongue had a mind of its own. So what? Just because I decided to go with you guys doesn't mean I trust you. You just be helping me hide for the time being. It's really no big deal, I won't even steal from you. I'll just keep to myself, and you are a shrimp because you a bit shorter than me, he said with a smirk in my direction. Everyone believes I'm a really calm person, but I am still a child and I do get riddled up for certain things. Example, this situation. You have some nerve. How can you just up and decide something like that? Shouldn't you think this through? And stop calling me a shrimp? I must keep calm. I must keep calm. I must keep calm. You don't want me dying somewhere, do you? I'm only 8. I have a life ahead of me. Besides, we might even become friends, shrimp. Kurosuke said, sighing with his arms crossed. Honestly, this guy. A minute ago he was arrogant and now he looks so down. Fine, you can come with us to train in Uzu, but no funny business, I told him, and I'm starting to feel a bit stressed out now. Hey shrimp. Do you have anything to eat? Don't call me that. I can call you what I want, shrimp. This guy. End of flashback. Hey shrimp. When are we getting supplies again? Kurosuke said, coming towards me. I sighed internally. This guy. Normal Pav. The 3 8-year-olds rested against an oak tree. They all wore shorts and a loose t-shirt which were slightly messy and dirty after they just finished their morning warm-up session, which involved stretching, jogging, push-ups, sit-ups, dodging and balancing. They were taking a 30-minute break before starting their training. Naruto Oni-chan. Kurosuke-kun. I'm going to get some water, do you want some too? Akari asked the 2 boys as she got up. Both of them said yes, and then she was on her way towards the river just a yard away from where they were currently. This left the 2 boys in silence, making both of them a bit more serious. Naruto. I've been thinking about something for the past week since that incident when Akari and me found out about your past. At first I was angry you never told us about it because I thought we were finally friends now after you said so. I didn't even think your family would act like that towards you. I mean, you know about my past, that my family was killed because they didn't believe that my family was innocent, and now they want to kill me too, even though I didn't do anything either. But after thinking about everything properly, I decided I'll help you since you my only friend other than Akari. Kurosuke said all this to Naruto while looking away with his arms folded. Kurosuke. Thanks. You are my friend, and even though it's been only 2 months, I trust Akari and you with my life. I was just scared to tell you guys about my past and that I wanted to get revenge against them. Every day we study in the Uzumaki library, and the more I think about getting back at them, the more I think I shouldn't only focus on that. And I finally get that protecting people is also one of the best ways of getting back at and making a name for myself in the shinobi world. So will you help me? Because I can't do everything by myself. Naruto said, turning to the dark-headed boy next to him. Okay, I'll definitely be by your side along with Akari. But it better not be boring. Kurosuke mumbled with a small smile on his face, and Naruto smiled as well. Neither of them noticed Akari was returning, but that was okay for now because everything would be alright. Konoha. A pink-headed girl sat on a park swing by herself and thought about the blonde boy who came out of nowhere like a knight and rescued her from the bullies who constantly haunted her every day of every week. His blonde hair that had streaks in it had glimmered in the setting sun, while his purple eyes glowed like a gem in the dark. He had stood tall against the bullies. He showed her that she just needed to stand tall and be strong. That is why she had been looking for him, but the adults all said he ran away because of family problems. There was even a rumor saying that he ran away because he wasn't treated well by his family. I wonder where you are, Naruto-kun, she mumbled, looking up to the sky with her forest green eyes. Konoha Hospital. It has been more or less 2 months since Tsunade and Shizune left on a vacation, and during that time Bawako was made head of the hospital until Tsunade got back. Currently Kushina was in the office getting her results back since she had been sick lately, and she was a bit hesitant to just outright believe it was what she thought it is without consulting a doctor first. Well, as you know, I have your results, which is why I called you here. Bawako told the redhead while gesturing her to take a seat before she dropped any kind of bomb on the woman who already had a fragile state of mind since finding out why her only son left and ran somewhere out of her reach. So what are my results, Bawako-san? Is it a stomach bug of some sort? Kushina's asked, her voice shook under a trained ear. The family she had dreamed of with Minato was shattered and twisted into a nightmare, and if this was what she thought it was, she didn't know what to do. Kushina, let's not beat around the bush. I am confirming your suspicions. Kushina, you are a month pregnant. Congratulations. You and Minato only have two choices right now. Redemption. By raising your children you have that is currently in this village the right way and treat them all equally, or do the same thing the two of you did to Naruto to both your girls you have and your unborn baby. Bawako told her with a straight face, putting down Kushina's medical file on the desk. Kushina's eyes widened in shock and she sank into the chair while crying and laughing at the same time. Bawako sighed and waited for the younger woman to calm down. Uchiha Training Grounds. A figure laid on the grass near the river bank. Onyx black eyes stared up at the cloudless sky deep in thought. A small sigh escaped the figure's lips and he pulled himself up into a seated position. His pitch black hair that was normally in a low ponytail swayed in the light breeze as his thoughts focused on one thing. The Uchiha clan. Itachi had been getting more pressured lately by the clan elders and his father, but he refused to buckle under their selfish desires for the clan. He knew they were planning something concerning the Hokage and the village, something that without a doubt will end up in disaster for not just the village but the clan too. His thoughts would have continued if he didn't notice his cousin's presence. Shisui. Council? Itachi asked as another dark-headed boy appeared behind him. Damn it. You sensed me. And yeah, those fossils are calling again. Shisui replied with annoyance. Shisui had short curly black hair and wore an annoyed look which was different from his unusually large grin he normally wears compared to all the other Uchihas. Hey, it looks like there'll be a storm soon. The sky's gone all dark and cloudy, he told Itachi after looking up at the sky. Yes. There will be one soon, Itachi said before getting up and walking away towards the council chamber from the training grounds. Shisui jogged to catch up with the younger Uchiha heir. Hey, now I get the feeling we aren't talking about the same thing here, right, Itachi? Ida-chan. Don't ignore me. Ida Chann. Uchiha main house. Sasuke-chan, where are you, my baby? Makoto called from the kitchen where she was making dinner for herself and her three boys in the house. Her belly protruding slightly, showing she was about 4 months pregnant with the soon-to-be new addition to the Uchiha family in the house. Okawa-san. I told you to stop calling me that. I'm not a baby. You're the one having a baby, which is gonna be my little brother or sister. And I was just in the lounge. Sasuke said, pouting with his arms crossed across his chest, trying the famous Uchiha glare on his mother. Makoto just laughed at how cute he is. Then a memory suddenly stuck her of Naruto and her chest suddenly felt heavy again and she let out a sigh. Yeah, big man. Go set the table for me. Okay, Okawa-san. Namikaze compound. A red-streaked blonde-headed girl with navy blue eyes sat under the tree her brother always sat when he was still with them. Noriko thought more about her wrongdoings towards her brother. All the things she had done wrong haunted her day in and day out, even though she had made a promise to change herself. Which is why she sometimes sat under this tree that he always used to sit under. She wanted to be stronger so she can also search for Naruto and apologize to him. Thinking about Naruto, she remembered the day Nanami and her met the Kyuubi no Yoko. Flashback. They were just put into the coma so that the Yukai could flow through their bodies without hurting them physically or making them go berserk and kill everyone. Minato and Kushina stood to the side after the seals were activated and waited in case anything went wrong so they can step in and help. As the two girls closed their eyes and everything, if they heard a grunt of annoyance in the back of their minds. It wasn't much later that they ended up in their own different mindscape. Noriko found herself in a field-like place with a huge cage with chains on every bar. Nanami found herself in a sewer-like place and a cage in front of her. Noriko. So my host grants me the pleasure of meeting me for the first time, huh? How distasteful you are, host. How distasteful. And sad. A voice came from the cage, which was misty with fog. A single vibrant red eye was seen through the most. Nariko took a step back from shock at how huge the eye itself was and how light the voice sounded. Who are you? Are you the Kyuubi? Asked Nariko. A laugh came from beyond the cage as if mocking Nariko, whose face turned pale with fright. Of course. Who else were you expecting? The Ichibi? Although I'm split in two, it doesn't mean I'm any less powerful. The Yin Kyuubi said, coming out of the mist with a bright red fur coat and 9 tails swaying behind. His huge white teeth bore down at her with a grin. What? Why am I here? Nariko asked the fox before her while she looked at him with awe and fright. Why? Because I summoned you here, human. See, although I'm the yin half of the Kyuubi, I have decided to help you on 2 conditions. Seeing as how pitiful you 2 girls are, my other half agreed we rather not have you 2 as our hosts, but at the moment that can't be helped, so the conditions is as such. We will help the 2 of you as long as you agree to 1. Not forcefully take out chakra, and 2. We'll talk about it at a later date. Hee. Be gone now, human. Flashback end. Unknown place. A figure sat at a table with a deck of cards in his hands. Glowing purple eyes flashed in mirthfulness. King, queen, jack or ace? The ignorant king? The silly queen? The foolish jack? Or the broken ace? What's keeping this play together? Hearts? Diamonds? Spades? Or clouds? What's next? Hee. Konoha. Makoto walked towards the Namikaze compound in thought. Her 7-month round belly sticking out as she made her way into the compound, since her chakra was keyed into the protective seal. A few hours ago she had decided to be the better person and speak to Kushina about everything. After all, they had been friends for years now. Makoto thought about Naruto and how she came to love him like her own son, but quickly stopped her train of thought as it would lead her to cry, especially more so since her hormones were jumping up and down. Makoto knocked on the door that she now stood in front of and waited for someone to answer the door. She didn't wait too long as the door was opened by Nariko. The girl who was once one of her adoptive son's tormentors looked up at her with shocked eyes. Makoto suddenly felt like turning around and walking away from her friend's home, but she held her resolve. Nariko. I'm here to speak with your mother. May I come in? Asked Makoto, looking down at the younger girl. Nariko opened her mouth but decided against saying anything and just nodded her head and opened the door wider for Makoto to go in as she went to inform her mother that Makoto was there to see her. Makoto walked into the lounge and seen Kushina sit up from her laying position when she walked in. She took in Kushina's body language and immediately knew there was something wrong. However, Makoto ignored that for now. Makoto took a seat opposite her childhood friend, who stared at her waiting for the dark-headed woman to speak, and Makoto didn't disappoint. Kushina. I wish to speak about Naruto-kun. Uchiha compound. Hey Itachi. Let's go out. It's so boring here. Come on, man. It's so nice out in the village today, let's go find something to do. Said Shisui, tugging on the Uchiha air. Itachi, however, wanted peace of mind, but Shisui wouldn't leave him alone. In Itachi's mind, his best friend was being noisy again, but then again he was always noisy. Fine. Where would you like to go, Shisui? And no, we won't go look for a girl for me. Or you for that matter. Itachi sighed when Shisui started dancing in victory until he heard the last part of his sentence and started pouting. Itachi's hand flashed out quickly and smacked his friend on the back of his head, before walking out his house, hearing Shisui's cries of being mean. The 2 Uchihas walked through the village for a while with Shisui talking about random stuff and Itachi trying to block out his loud older cousin and his stupidity. They eventually decided to go to the dango shop that the snake mistress normally always at. Shisui ordered some dango while Itachi ordered some porky. Hey Itachi. Do you think we'll find that brat? Aunt was really sad we couldn't find him last time. I mean, I miss the little guy and I know you do too. He was like a little brother to us, even though you already have a brother. Remember when Aunt brought him home and told us to cheer him up when Kushina-san forgot him at the park? Ha ha ha. He was so easy to tease. Shisui laughed lightly with a slightly sad look in his eyes. Itachi kept silent throughout what his friend said. Naruto is fine. I'm sure of it. He'll come back when he's ready to. Itachi murmured softly and continued to eat his porky whilst gazing out the window. Shisui reached out to steal some of Itachi's porky, but Itachi's hand shot out and grabbed his friend's wrist and turned to him with demonic eyes. No one touches my porky. Oi! Uchihas, that's my table, move before I let my snakes have a hearty meal of your balls. A purple-headed woman yelled out, already pulling out her snakes. Shisui paled and started sweating nervously, his wrist still in Itachi's grasp. Itachi just glanced in the woman's direction for a second before letting go of Shisui and disappeared with the rest of the porky. Ha! Anko! Hee! Shisui didn't say anything else as he bolted from his seat, forgetting he could shush away from the crazy lady. Anko of course cracked up with evil laughter, before sending a shadow clone after him whilst she sat down and ordered a few plates of dango for herself, laughing harder when she heard the commotion outside. I'm just that good. Namikaze compound. Kushina and Makoto sat in silence after Makoto explained how she came to care for Naruto more than normal. Kushina let a few tears fall from her eyes, silently looking down at her hands in shame. Makoto didn't feel glad to bring her longtime friend to tears now that she was thinking with a calm mind. She actually felt slightly sorry for the woman opposite her. The feeling wasn't for the fact that she was in pain over this whole ordeal, it was because the woman was a fool for not seeing everything that was going on. Makoto. I'm such a bad mother. I don't deserve a son like Naruto. I should have seen what was going on. I shouldn't have treated him the way I did. And now. Oh Kami Makoto. What am I going to do now? I was so terrible. Surely I'll mess up again. Kushina cried out, balling her hands in her apron. Makoto frowned, not knowing exactly what's going on. Kushina, what are you talking about? What do you mean you going to mess up again? What's going on? Makoto asked, confused at the redhead across from her. Kushina shook with tears, her half-dead looking eyes swelled up with more and more tears, making her eyes red and her face puffy. Makoto's frown turned worse as she wondered what's going on. Finally Kushina told her what was wrong. I'm 3 months pregnant. What? Kushina and Makoto turned around to the voice. A pair of shocked blue eyes met one pair of onyx black and one pair of puffy violet eyes. One word was uttered. Minato. Uzu Teisho. The one and only Uzumaki. Naruto sat meditating on his bed. He was uncertain with what to train in. They had just been doing stamina and endurance exercises. He did know for one he was always going to be dead set in Genjutsu and Fuinjutsu, that was long time determined. However, he didn't want to rely on just those two, and that's why right now he was at a dead end. Hey, Shrimp. Let's go spar. Come on now, you look bored in here. And I also think it will help us Acto train in. Akari and I have guesses on what to train in, but we still unsure. So we think maybe a spar or two will help us settle on something, but really you can't just sit around here and meditate, it is boring. What are you, a grandpa? I mean, it's such a nice day to spar, but you are here instead. So we gonna drag you out of here to spar? Kurosuke demanded, just like any 8-year-old would, and Akari was right behind him, nodding her head. Fine. Don't pull me. I'll come spar with you guys. You're so mean, just telling me what to do. Naruto pouted as he stopped his friends from dragging him out the room. In the back of his mind he thought that just maybe they were right, even if they were being extra childish than they normally were. Yeah. Maybe they're right. Oh yeah. Naruto-kun. I found this really pretty place the other day, it's on the other side of the island. I mean, it was really pretty. There was like this cave place thing, and when I went into it there were like this glow further in, and when I went to check it out I found this huge pool thingy that has this huge whirlpool thing in the middle of it, and it was like the water was glowing. It was so nice, and I want to show you guys. But I mean after we spar, then we can do see it, cause I remembered the way there but it was very tricky. So let's go spar quickly. Akari rambled on, bouncing up and down in excitement, and the two boys became curious about this so-called pretty place. Naruto's POV. After being dragged to the training area that we normally use, we decided to have an all-out spar where we all went against each other. Akari, Kurosuke and I stood facing each other in a triangle-like shape. We tensed up, and then like an explosion going off we moved. The rules were simple: no pairing up and no holding back. It was always the same rules, even when it was one-on-one. Kurosuke came at me with a punch. We went at it for about a minute before Akari cut in, fighting both of us at the same time while we tried to fight each other. Jumping back, I made hand seals as fast as I could for one of my less harmful genjutsus, the Demon Viewer. I found that in a scroll in the secret library we found last month. The genjutsu shows the person it is used on their worst nightmare. Of course they broke out of it faster than before and attacked me again. Ducking under Akari's kick, I twisted into her guard and punched the air out of her. After training every day, we all got a little more mature, especially Akari, and we all grew in strength. One punch didn't keep her down because she bounced right back up after a few minutes, showing that the endurance training and everyday sparring that we did was paying off. Kurosuke moved out of the way as I let loose a kick at him. He quickly let me have a knuckle sandwich and my face stung with the hit, but I moved out of his range and performed another genjutsu called Paralyze. It stops the movement of the person it is used on. This time, however, I didn't wait for him to break it. I moved in quickly and had him surrender before doing the same to Akari, who I also put under the genjutsu. No fair. Naruto-kun, you know how to use jutsus faster than us. How come you beat us at everything? Even Kurosuke-kun isn't as good as you are. Akari whined as she pouted at me, and I felt my face heat up at her words. I wasn't that good at everything like she said I am. I guess I just train more than they do. It's hardly my fault, they rather go exploring than training most of the time. Ah, Akari, we know what he is thinking, that maybe if we trained more we would also be just as good as he is. Isn't that right, Shrimp? That's what you thinking, right? Kurosuke gave me a grin and I shook my head outwardly in denial. Inside I was thinking along the lines of, yes Kurosuke, that's exactly what I was thinking. How did you know? Anyway, Akari, you said you wanted to show us this place you found? We finished sparring now, so are we still going? I quickly changed the subject because I was avoiding any more of my thoughts being revealed to Akari, especially since most of the time Kurosuke says exactly what I'm thinking. He once told me his family taught him how to read people while he was still a baby. However, I really don't see how a baby can learn something like that. Yeah. Let's go see it now. Come on guys. It's this way, let's go. Akari sung as she hopped along, pulling us with her to this place she found. Her excitement was contagious because I found myself more curious about this place, and I can't imagine Kurosuke wasn't curious too with the way his eyes gleamed and the grin he wore. He caught my eyes and his grin went wider. I was left wondering whether his face would eventually split. As we walked through the forest on the other side of the island, there was this tingling feeling in my stomach, and the closer we got to this place Akari was leading us to, the more the tingling got. It wasn't a bad tingling feeling, it was warm. Finally we came to a stop at the mouth of a cave-like place, and Akari's face lit up and she turned to us, spreading her arms out. This is it. Normal path. Naruto stared at the whirlpool before him. The dark cave was illuminated by the glow the water gave off. The pool, as Akari called it, looked more like a medium-sized lake. The water glowed a bright light blue color that looked like silver was mixed in with the blue. In the middle of the lake there was a large whirlpool that swirled around lazily in a hypnotic way. Well, let's taste this water, since it looks so clear and clean. Kurosuke said with a very childish grin as he dipped his hands in the water. However, just as his hands were submerged in the glowing water, the whirlpool started spinning very fast and furiously. The water current was so strong that Kurosuke got a shock and fell in when the current pulled on his hands. Naruto and Akari, who was standing behind the dark-headed boy, both tried to catch him, but it was too late and they both were pulled in along with their dark-headed companion. The three screamed and desperately held onto each other any way they could. They were pulled closer and closer towards the middle of the whirlpool and couldn't even use chakra to get out of the water. The lazy swirling of the whirlpool earlier was long forgotten due to the furious waters that were currently sweeping the three of them away. They thought for sure they were going to die. Well, they were about to find out what their fate was, because they had reached the center of the whirlpool and were being sucked down. Naruto's pav. I opened my eyes to see I was in some other cave. What's going on? Where are we? Those were my thoughts as I woke my friends up. The last thing I remember is that whirlpool that we went down, and then everything went black, and now here we are. I thought of many different ways we could have ended up here, and the answer I keep getting is almost hard to believe. However, if it wasn't because I read the Uzumaki history, then I wouldn't believe it myself. Naruto-kun. Where are we? Asked Akari. She was looking around the place curiously, while Kurosuke just sat on the ground scratching his head, looking around confused. I decided to think about how I could possibly tell them that I think the whirlpool was some kind of portal to a pocket dimension thing, either just for Uzumakis or prisoners of some kind. Well, I think we in another cave somewhere else that is somehow connected to that other cave with the whirlpool, but I'm not really sure if it's only for Uzumakis because Kurosuke is here, so I think we should watch out just in case while we trying to find a way out of this place. I told Akari and Kurosuke this and they looked like they kind of understood what I was trying to say, but I honestly couldn't be too sure when it comes to those two. We walked around looking if we could find a way out, but that's not what we ended up finding. What we came across was something both confusing and amazing. It was something we only seen in the history books of Uzu that we came across. Something that we never seen pictures of but did read the details and description of, and in my case heard about from it, that the weapons that Mito-sama told you about. The same ones in the history of Uzu? But there's only 3 of them. Where are the others? Yo shrimp. Are you even listening? Wait, don't go closer, there might be a trap here. Hey? Naruto, wait man, wait. Kurosuke shouted at me, but I was already there touching the weapons my ancestors left for me. The first one I lifted slightly up from the stone altar. It was heavy, but not as heavy as it looked. The material of the handle warmed under my skin and I could hear a humming sound from the weapon I held. The material was black with a red Uzumaki clan symbol on the handle, and the cover of the katana was the same color as the grip of the blade with the same red whirlpool symbol on it. On the right side of the blade I picked up there was a twin blade for the one I held. They looked identical and both of them had 2 pitch black gems dangling from the head of each grip. Beautiful. That was all that came to mind as I stood at the stone altar. Kurasuke's pav. I walked up towards that idiot and grabbed his shoulder. I glanced at the weapons on the altar, but I resisted the urge to also touch them. They were really nice, and the one pair of swords in the navy blue covers with white designs really called out to me, but I was worried whether this was a trap or not. I mean, I have been caught in a few traps before because of those people that was after my family before. I don't want anything to happen to these 2 that I have just come to think of as my new family. Naruto, you baka. Didn't I say that might be a trap? Why didn't you listen? I know that this might be what you were looking for along with that purple stone thing, but still. This could be a trap set up for anyone who comes through that whirlpool thing that sucked us up in here. I yelled at the idiot in front of me and he looked kind of shocked and dropped the sword he was holding back onto the altar. Akari, who stood behind us a bit further away from the altar, looked between us with worry. Ah. Kurosuke, sorry. I was just so drawn to this swords, I didn't mean to ignore your warning. I mean, what are the chances we were looking for the Uzumaki heritage and then Akari stumbles across the cave with the whirlpool and then you fell in and we all got pulled here? Naruto said, looking slightly bashful. I shook my head at his idiocy. Sometimes, I opened my mouth to say something, but there was suddenly a pressure pressing down on all 3 of us. Who dares to enter this cave under my protection? There are 2 Uzumakis here. Are you traitors? Who is this other person here? Why are you here? Answer me now. A thunderous female voice echoed all around us, and this beautiful woman with red hair appeared before us wearing long white robes with the symbol of fire on it. Aunt Mito. It's me, Naruto Uzumaki, and my friends Akari Uzumaki and Kurosuke Katsuno. I came to Uzu on the orders from you, Auntie Mito. Part of your soul appeared in Konoha and saved me from death and made me your heir. You also said if I chose for myself, when my memories of you were sealed, to go to Uzu, then I'll get my memories of you back and then I will have to find the Uzumaki legacy. Naruto told the woman in front of us. I looked at him in awe. Naruto had forced himself to stand up even under the pressure that was pressing down on us. You are a brave one, young man. If it is as you say it is, I wish to see some proof of what you say. You should have the proof I need in order for me to allow you to leave with 3 of 8 weapon sets from our ancestors. Come to me, young man, and let me see your memories of this other me you speak of. Mito-sama ordered. Naruto walked towards her without fear and allowed her to lay her hands on his head to see his memories. Not even a few minutes went past when Mito-sama pulled her hands away with her mouth in a frown. The pressure lifted off of us and Mito-sama pulled Naruto into her arms and hugged him. I stood up from the ground and glanced towards Akari, who had also been rooted in the same spot that she was in and just watched. Normal Pav. I'm glad you came to look for your legacy, Naruto. I'm really happy that you have found yourself companions as well. You can happily take the weapons. However, we only have 3 out of the 8 sets that used to be here. As you can see, the twin katanas, the twin said, and the scythe is the only ones here. The bow staff and the others used to have masters before until they died and their weapons stolen or lost. Mito told Naruto after she pulled away from the hug. Thank you, Auntie, but how will we find the others? I don't want the other weapons to be taken by the wrong people. I mean, I wish to give the weapons to the right people who will do the right thing with them. Naruto asked the elder Uzumaki. Mito smiled at him in return and nodded her head in understanding. Yes, Naruto, I know. You can give the weapons to your friends, but beware of who you give them to. The only way to unlock their power is the will to protect and survive in a life or death situation. You and whoever you give the weapons to can bond with them by blood, and then the weapon of choice will be able to be called back to the owner if it is out of reach. The weapons can also sense each other. You can use the strength of the glow to find the others. Naruto. There is something else I should warn you about, especially with the prophecy. Only you can stop the evil if you push aside your hatred for your family. Mito told him with a serious face, and he nodded back with an equally serious face. I know, but I can't forgive, nor can I forget about what they have put me through. Auntie Mito, you know for yourself. You've seen by memories. It's too much for me to forgive. That's the one thing you can't force me to do. Uzumaki legacy be damned. Naruto said with conviction. His face looked so closed off and impassive that you wouldn't even think of him as a soft-hearted person, especially his eyes, which had started glowing. That's understandable, Naruto. You don't have to forgive or forget what they made you go through, but please try and put it aside. Another thing is that I wish to train you. If the three of you train by yourselves, you will progress, but not as quickly as you want to or need to. However, the part of my soul that is here will help train you, but you will have to take that small rock and take it out of the whirlpool with you. That is all I can say for now. Now here is where you will find that rock and how to get out of this whirlpool. Mito said, then went on to giving them directions and explanations on how and where to find this small-sided glowing purple rock. 3 hours later, the trio walked out the cave that they originally went into, carrying their weapons of choice. Naruto had the twin katanas, Kurosuke had the twin sei, and Akari had the scythe. Each of them chose their own weapon and made sure to bond with said weapons, just like how Mito told them. They quickly went back to where they were staying to rest for the night, since it was already very late. After all, they did spend a lot of time in the cave with Mito while she explained some things to them. Elsewhere, a bow staff glowed in the darkness that wrapped around it, engulfing it with a white aura that pulsed every 2 minutes. 5 years later, 1991, 1992, 1993, 1994, 1995. 1996. A young 12-year-old boy grunted as he did push-ups using only his right arm, on his fingertips. The boy's tan muscles glimmered with sweat in the dim sunlight of a cloudy morning. Once he got to 2,000 push-ups, he stopped and leaned his back against the oak tree in the training ground. Taking a sip of water in his bottle, he closed his eyes and let out a sigh. How long do you plan on watching me? He asked while his eyes were still closed. Oh, come on, sweetie. You are so good to watch. How could I possibly restrain myself from watching you like a piece of meat dangling in front of my face? Looking is free after all. A woman laughed before taking a seat next to the younger boy, who still never opened his eyes. She folded her blue kimono-styled dress under her against the oak tree as well. So what do you need me for? You normally don't take a break this early in the day, and we only together most of the time when you given the day off or you take a day off. So you can't say you just wanted to see me or something like that. I'll repeat my question again now that you have no excuses. What do you need me for? May? The boy asked, opening his glinting purple eyes. Ah. And here I was going to beat around the bush some more, however. Yes, I do need something from you, and you and your team are the only ones who can help me with this pain in the ass problem. Besides, I wouldn't trouble you with my country's business if I could send someone else to do it or go myself. You know that, don't you? Naruto-kun? The cage of the village in the mist asked her companion, who ran a hand through his mixed-colored hair. Konoha. Team 7, your mission is to protect the bridge builder, Tazuna, and his family until he completes building his bridge in Wave Country. Do you understand me? You have today to prepare for this mission. Meet at the gates at 7 tomorrow from now. You are dismissed. A blonde-headed man in a white robe said sternly to the team in front of him. Hospital. A blonde woman sat looking out the window up at the clear sunny sky. Her honey-brown eyes glazed over, thinking about something. The woman spun her chair around and looked at the wall of her office that held a photo of 2 women and a small scrawny-looking boy who was smiling so hard that his eyes resembled a fox. The 2 women, one her assistant and the other one herself, looked happy in the picture. It's been 5 years now, huh? In 3 days it will be that time again. It has been too long now. I wonder how you have been and what you doing right now. I wonder how much you've changed, and I really wonder when you will come back to us again. In 3 more days it marks the day you ran away from Konoha. Naruto. Come back please. The head medic, Tsunade Senju, sighed softly and turned back to her paperwork. Tsunade-sensei. I'm going on a mission outside the village to Wave Country, so I won't be able to train with you until the mission is finished. The mission is to protect the bridge builder Tazuna-san. I was wondering if I can't get some last-minute training or advice from you, sensei? A pink-headed girl said, rushing into her teacher's office. The slug princess got a huge ticking vein above her left eyebrow. Sakura. How many times must I tell you? Stop rushing into my office without knocking, Tsunade yelled at her student while punching her desk once with such force it broke in half. Sakura had the decency to look embarrassed at her overeagerness to get her first mission outside the village. Sorry, Tsunade-sensei. The younger girl squeaked out with a red face. Sakura Haruno, one of Tsunade's apprentices. She had her hair tied up in a bun while her bangs hung loosely in her face. She wore a black and red top and a black shorts with her ninja pouch attached to her right leg and the standard black ninja sandals. Shit, I broke another desk. Shizune is going to be angry about this. It's the 10th desk this week. Oh well, I'll just have to get a new one again. How about we go out for some extra training, Sakura, before Shizune sees this mess? Seeing as how you are so eager to train with your sensei. Tsunade said, already halfway out the door. Poor Sakura could only run out the room after her sensei not wanting to be there when Shizune saw the broken desk. Mizu. Let me get this straight, okay? Mei-chan gave us a mission to bring back Zabuza Momochi, who is one of the 7 swordsmen of Mizu. All because she needs more manpower here? A red-headed girl with green eyes asked the leader of their team, who happened to be the one and only Naruto Uzumaki. Geez, Akari, are you mad at him or something? Please tell me you're not on your period again. Didn't you have it just the other day? Honestly, girls' bodies are weird? A boy with black hair said, but was cut off halfway through his sentence by the redhead who pulled out her favorite weapon, her scythe, and held it against him. Kurosuke. This morning I woke up in a pool of my own blood. Would you like to end up the same way? Akari said sweetly into his ear when she appeared behind him. The boy broke out in a cold sweat, paling ever so slightly at his friend's menacing aura. He shook his head slowly and she backed off, going back to stand where she was before Kurasuke's little comment. Now that you have settled down, Akari, and you have stopped your comments, Kurosuke, I will answer you by saying once again that we are going to bring Zabuza back with or without force, but we will bring him back. Hopefully without force, because things can get out of hand pretty fast. Now how about we go have some ramen and then get our things ready to leave by tomorrow at dawn, because I have some things to do before we leave, okay guys? Naruto asked them with a grin, and they both returned the grin and nodded. Mizuka's office. Mei sat behind her desk reading and signing documents for many different things. Once she was done signing the last of her documents for that moment, she sat back with a cup of green tea and sipped at the tea while closing her eyes and thinking about when she had first met Uzumaki, Naruto and his team. Flashback. A woman in a blue kimono-styled dress was bleeding from many different wounds, so much so that her dress was no longer just blue, it was now red and blue. 5 of the strongest loyalists shinobi was chasing her. There had been an ambush and there was over 50 of them. They took down her men as fast as they could and managed to wound her badly, and their blades were covered with poison, making her stumble around to get away. Eventually she fell into a large river with a rough current and got washed away after going unconscious. When she had woken up, she was in a tent and her wounds were bandaged up and had medical seals on it. I see you awake now. How are you feeling? A young boy no more than 10 years old said, coming into the tent. Mei looked at him properly. He had blonde hair with different color streaks and almost glowing purple eyes that she swore could see into her soul. She immediately recognized the boy. Why? You're the Hokage's son, aren't you? Why are you here? Who saved me? Mei queried. The boy's eyes lost all warmth and his lips pressed together. He studied her face for a few moments before leaving the tent, and another person came back instead. This time it was a 10-year-old girl that she didn't recognize as anyone she knew, but did recognize her as an Uzumaki. Listen lady, my friend saved you, so you must say thanks, not ask who his father is or anything family-wise, okay? Now I would like to know if you feeling any better than you did the other day when he first brought you here? Here, drink some water. It's not poison, just so you know, because if we wanted to kill you or something, Naruto-kun could have just left you like that by the river. The redhead said, giving Mei a bottle of water while watching her with narrowed green eyes. You right, I'm sorry for asking something like that after you guys saved me. My name's Mei Terumi. I'm the leader of the rebels. The people who were trying to kill me are the loyalists. However, I'm feeling a lot better than I did before. Thank you for helping me when I was in trouble. Mei told the red-headed girl, taking the water and drinking some. The water felt so nice going down her parched throat. So that's what happened. Alright, but you should thank Naruto-kun. Neither Kurosuke nor I helped save you. He did all the work because both of us were scouting and gathering firewood while he went fishing for our dinner. So Naruto-kun came back and set up a tent for you, cleaned you up and healed you, then put those bandages with medical seals on you. So by the time we came back he was already done, so now we were just waiting for you to wake up. Oh, and my name is Akari Uzumaki, the green-eyed girl said. What? He did that all by himself, but how? You guys are still so small, he doesn't even know me either. This discovery. Akari looked at her funny, then shook her head and walked out the tent, leaving Mei alone to think on her own. Later on she learned a lot more about Naruto and the rest of his team. Flashback end, Naruto's POV. 2 years ago I met and joined Mei in her dream of freeing the bloodlines of Mizu. And a year ago I met Sarah, who was a descendant of Queen Sarah. Somehow Sarah is the reincarnation of the queen and actually remembers her past life. However, that was one of my few adventures with Akari and Kurosuke. We learned a lot from Aunt Mito and used what we learned during the war in Mizu. Now I own a house and a private training ground here, as well as a vote on the Council of Mizu. It's been so long since the last time I saw my so-called family back in Konoha, but the hate I hold for them still boils inside me. Looking around my room, I took note of everything from the peach walls to the polished wooden floors. My bed was in the middle of the room against the wall facing the soundproof door I had just walked through. My desk was under the window towards the right side of the room, and a bookshelf sat on the left of the desk, while my walk-in closet was on the left side of the room. I walked over to the desk and looked at the few picture frames that stood on top of the desk. The first picture to the left showed Kurosuke on the left, Akari in the middle, myself on the right, and Aunt Mito behind us. A shadow clone of mine took the picture while we all posed for it like a real team photo. That was taken a week before we left Uzu on our journey, and that had been 3.5 years ago. The next picture showed Princess Koyuki and me, while Akari and Kurosuke was in the background while Koyuki was kissing my cheek. That happened 2 years ago, just before we came to Mizu. The following photo showed Princess Shion with my team and me all standing together smiling. That was just after things settled down with Mizu last year. The last picture was taken just after we won the war, with Mei hugging me and my teammates laughing in the background at my slightly flustered face. There were also other pictures on the walls of the time in Uzu, and even pictures with other people we've met, including Sarah. Naruto-kun? Can I come in? I heard Akari ask from outside my room, and I walked to the door, opening it for her to come inside. She walked to my bed and sat down with a frown. Something was bothering her, I could feel it. Akari studied my face for a few minutes. Naruto-kun, we'll be leaving soon again, won't we? She asked. Maybe. Mei knows it too. We have been here for 2 years already, and we have found the bow staff and the single short katana, so we currently have 5 out of 8 weapons, and that's only a part of the Uzumaki legacy. On top of it, Aki, something weird is going on. I can feel it. I don't know when or where this strange feeling is going to lead me, but I know it's calling me out. I'd understand if you guys won't support leaving again this time. I told her this and sat next to her on the bed. It's fine, Naruto-kun, I just wanted to know what you're thinking. Kurosuke has been edgy too, and so have I. You have many people who support whatever you do, and you know that. Hell, you have 3 princesses, one that is reincarnated, a cage, a king and prince, as your team and family, as well as so many other people out there that are supporting you secretly. So don't ever say something like that again. We will go wherever you go, Akari exclaimed with such conviction I couldn't help embracing her tightly. She has matured so much since she was that little girl who called me Naruto Oni-chan. I let out a chuckle. Konoha. A woman with long red hair sat sipping on some orange juice while watching her 4th child, who was 4 years old, play with her best friend's youngest child. The 2 little girls were playing tag with each other while her best friend sat opposite her, also sipping on some orange juice. I must say, Kushina, you have done a much better job raising your youngest daughter than you have done raising your triplets. I don't really wish to bring this up much with you because I still get extremely angry at you, but in 3 days it will mark another year since Naruto-kun ran away from you and Minato. Just the other day Natsumi-chan asked me to tell her about her Oni-chan and then asked if he is still going to come home. A dark-headed woman said to her friend while she watched her own daughter play. Makoto, it's still hard for me and the rest of this family since we have realized our faults when it came to my son. It's worse now since Natsumi only wants to learn more about her brother. We don't even know if he is still alive since no one has reported seeing him. Makoto. She even says she dreams about him sometimes. Nanami and Noriko have really changed a lot of their ways after he left. They proved to me that they could actually be around Natsumi without doing what they did in the past to Naruto. However, Natsumi said she wants to be like him when she's older. She's already studying seals and genjutsu. Kushina told her friend while a few tears escaped her eyes. Okawa-san. Look at what I drew. It's Oni-chan. The little girl with red hair said, coming towards her mother with a picture showing a messy drawing of a person with yellow-colored hair and purple eyes with whisker marks on each cheek and a huge smile. The black-headed girl frowned and showed her own version of Naruto. Ah, Natsumi-chan. Sayuki-chan, both your drawings look very pretty now. Why don't you girls go draw a picture of me and Natsumi-chan's Okawa-san? Makoto told them, and they both smiled happily and ran off to draw their mommies. Kushina let a few more tears slip out while Makoto forced her own tears back. Ichiraku stand. A navy blue-headed girl broke apart her pair of chopsticks and started eating from the steaming bowl of ramen in front of her. Savoring the taste of the delicious meal made her pupilless-looking lavender eyes flutter close. However, her mood was immediately wrecked when she picked up two familiar chakra signatures and heard the stand's flaps open, showing the arrival of a new customer. Please inform me of the reason why you are in my presence if you knew I was here. If you do not have a good enough reason, then I politely ask you to leave right now at this moment in time. If not, I might just lose my cool and tell you once again what exactly I think of you. After all, no matter how much you change your ways, you can't change the sins you have already committed. The girl said, not once looking back to the two other girls who walked in. The two girls didn't say a word and just walked back out. Wow, Hinata-chan. You sure beat around the bush when telling somebody to fuck off, said a boy who had red triangles on his cheeks. Next to him sat another boy with dark glasses and a long gray coat. You know, Hinata-chan, you can't possibly stay mad at them forever. I mean? Before he could continue his sentence, Hinata slapped her chopsticks down on the table. Kiba. Don't talk about something you hardly know, so just keep your mouth shut, okay? Let me eat in peace. Hinata said this with a stern voice that made him go silent. Meanwhile, Shino, the other member of their three-man squad, sat quietly and just listened to the conflict happening around him. Hinata looked down at her ramen and felt a memory resurface. Flashback. 4 years ago, a young Hinata sat in the park on a swing while her cousin pushed her back and forth. Two young girls approached the cousins. These two girls happened to be the Namikaze girls, Noriko and Nanami. They stopped in front of Hinata, and Neji and the Hyugas looked back at the two girls. Hinata-chan, right? The two of us, Nanami and me, want to ask about how much you know about our brother Naruto. See, we were very bad towards him, so now we want to make it up to him by getting to know him better. So do you mind? Before Noriko could complete her sentence, a loud sound echoed through the park. Hinata's hand was stretched out in front of her. How dare you ask us something like that? Are you not feeling ashamed thing about your own brother? That you have to ask us about him? I can't stand your face any longer, so just leave us alone. If you want to know about Naruto-kun, go ask him yourself. Oh yeah, wait, I remember now. It's your family's fault that he ran away, so you can't ask him. I bet if he was still here, you all would still act like you used to with him. Hinata shouted out at them, but calmed down by the end of her rant. The heiress turned her back to the two girls and left with her cousin. Flashback end. Hinata finished her ramen and stood up and left the stand with her teammates. The owner and his daughter both shook their heads at the conflicts happening with the younger generation. Tucci sighed tiredly. I wonder when Naruto-kun will be back. I think the ramen is boiling over. Oh, the ramen. Ayumi-chan. The next day. At the same time that Team 7 left the village for Wave Country, Mizu, Naruto's team also left the village for Wave Country to retrieve Zabuza and take him back to Mizu before they leave again on their journey for somewhere else. Neither teams knew it at that time, but things were about to get very interesting on their separate missions. Konoha. Okay, Team 7, let's set out. Sakura, Sasuke and Sai, you must watch out from here on out, do you understand me? A man with silver gravity-defying hair asked his team sternly, and they gave their separate replies while their client stood on the side watching. Good, I'm glad we all understand each other then. He said, giving an one-eye smile since his other eye was covered with his headband. Mizu. All right, Akari, Kurosuke, be on guard. I heard this guy is tough and the other Anbu sent after him were all cut down, so let's be careful, alright? Naruto told his friends and they nodded in return. Good. Then let's go now because we never know what or who we might encounter on our way. We already packed up and said our goodbyes to everyone in Mizu here, so we going to find him and send him back here, then we can start our journey again. Now let's go, Naruto said, and they set out. For Team 7 things went from bad to really bad at a moment's notice. Zabuza, one of the 7 swordsmen, attacked them ruthlessly while trying to get to their client. Kakashi took him on immediately whilst telling the 3 of them to get back and stay out of the fight. All they could do is watch the battle unfolding before them on the lake's surface. They were scared. Maybe, just maybe, they should hightail it back to Konoha. Cause damn it, they weren't even getting paid enough for this. Kakashi ducked under Zabuza's sword, getting up into his guard and landing an incredibly powerful kick that made the ex-Mizu nin fly across the water. Zabuza pushed forward, never letting up, and spun a water jutsu towards the Konoha nin. Of course Kakashi countered that with his own jutsu and attacking, landing a few punches of his own before withdrawing with a back flip, due to the sword that nearly cut his body in half. Once again Kakashi had to dodge the sword. His attention was split between Team 7 with their client and Zabuza, so naturally due to a split attention the copy nin was losing badly. Zabuza used the distraction to his own advantage. After all, you are supposed to pay attention to the opponent. Using his body to flex in a near impossible way, he left a gash down Zabuza's defenseless back. Not missing a beat, as if the wound he received didn't faze him, he swung his blade down ready to take Kakashi's head off, and at the same time he performed a few hand seals to create a water clone which went after the client and Genin. Flipping over, Kakashi growled and charged into the enemy's guard with his Chidori aimed for the heart. For the moment he dared to look at his students, which proved to be a mistake, seeing as Zabuza's water clone threw Sasuke into a tree and had Sakura by the hair using her ponytail as a handle, grinning menacingly at Sai, who almost didn't seem fazed except for the sweat pouring down his face that gave him away. This moment of turning to glacé at his students cost him big time. Just as Kakashi was about to land a killing blow, Zabuza moved out the way with his body in the most impossible position, sending a swipe at Kakashi, who knew he couldn't dodge the blade and moved slightly to avoid his most important vital spots, and the blade cut into his right shoulder between the bone, therefore rendering his arm near useless, and he managed to jump back to his squad just in time to not only avoid the enemy's next strike but managing to take out the water clone and help his students despite the grave injury. Kakashi-sensei, are you okay? Let me treat the wound? Sakura's voice died in her throat as she saw just how bad her sensei was cut up. She knew she couldn't patch that up. Kakashi smiled at his students, and just as he was about to give them the order to run, while Zabuza was casually walking towards them basking in his pre-victory over the copycat nin, they heard clapping and turned to where sound was coming from. What a nice warm-up to watch. You both did very well, however, it's about time I stepped in. Zabuza, my team is here to collect you. You are wanted back in Mizu, and as a favor to Mei-chan I am here to take you back unharmed. That is, unless you would like to be harmed, because I could so do that. From under the shade of a willow tree walked a multi-hair colored boy looking no older than 15 if not younger. He was the one that spoke. Behind him 2 others flanked him on either side. To his left was a young girl who looked to be around the same age as the one speaking. She had long red hair and forest green eyes holding a deadly glint in them. On the boy's right was another boy with black hair and golden eyes and a smirk that could rival Uchiha's. Kakashi's eyes widened. The first boy looked similar, if not extremely similar, to the young boy who was his sensei's eldest child. However, the multicolored hair and slightly glowing eyes were a throw-off of the once innocent-looking child he used to babysit along with the 2 others. Naruto, the silver-headed ninja, thought sadly. Bahaha. You kid me, boy. Do you know what you implying? You think you can take me on? Please. I will wipe the floor 3 times over with you and your little friends. Zabuza said, throwing his head back laughing in amusement. He only had a millisecond to react before the boy was on him with a kick that, even though it didn't connect, the pressure behind it sent the ex-Mizu nin sailing through the air. Not willing to give said ninja any time to gain his bearings, the younger one was on him again. This time his kicks and punches did hit and left bone-breaking results. Just as Zabuza gained his footing, he sent a swing at the boy, who merely raised an eyebrow and caught the blade between his 2 palms and sent a pulse of chakra through the big blade and heating it up, making Zabuza hastily let the blade go and jump back. The multicolored haired boy threw the blade up, flipping it so that the handle could rest in his hand. He gave it a testing swing and looked up, a grin slipping on his face like a cat who caught the canary. Zabuza opened his mouth to say something but was cut off when his opponent sent quick and fast swipes towards him from a distance which were in fact chakra-induced swipes, and worse off it was wind chakra, sending Zabuza, who ended up getting cut up worse than Kakashi due to the obvious mastery of said element, into a tree while his wounds bled furiously. Just then 3 Senbon flew out of a tree, supposedly killing Zabuza instantly, and a Mizu Anbu appeared. "Thank you for putting Zabuza in this position so that I may take him out. He is now dead, so I will be taking him and his blade back to my village. Will you be so polite as to hand over the blade to me?" The soft voice of the Mizu ninja called out towards the ninja who held said sword in his hand. Unfortunately for said hunter Nin, the mysterious boy and his team of 2 others knew that this was a fake but decided to let it play out. "No, I think I'll keep it," he said in an amused voice. The so called flew and disappeared in a whirl of water. The newcomers who had just arrived a few minutes ago and dominated the enemy turned to Team 7, who looked relieved but still wary about the newcomers. "Akari-chan, would you mind seeing to Kakashi? Tazuna-san, would you mind showing us to your home to stay until the Konoha shinobi have recovered? It would be very much appreciated, thank you." The leader of the squad that arrived gave out his orders before looking at the spellbound genins after Kakashi, who had seemed to have passed out due to blood loss and chakra depletion. Naruto's POV. I'll have to say that it surprised me that Kakashi was in such bad shape. Him being an elite ninja and all, I kind of expected more from him. Looking down at Zabuza's sword, he decided he'll let the man heal a bit before going after him to talk, now that the man would calm down more from his excitement of being able to cut Kakashi up. He looked up at the sky and smiled. It would start raining soon. He quickly followed his team and Tazuna's house. I studied the 3 genin before me and recognized 2 of them. One was Itachi's younger brother and the other was a girl he distantly remembered. After all, pink hair wasn't common, at least not that he knew of. They too were watching me intently and on guard, despite also being curious about me and my 2 friends. The pink-headed one stepped forward, ignoring her teammates, and opened her mouth to speak, but Akari, who just entered the room, beat her to it. "Hey Naruto-kun. Kakashi-san will be alright. I fixed up his shoulder and everything else along with his cracked ribs. He just needs some rest now and should be back on his feet in 3 or so days, since I boosted his chakra system with my own, so he should be fully recovered soon," Akari stated calmly and composed, just like Mito taught them to be. Akari's eyes wandered carefully over the genin team and was about to start patching them up when the female of Kakashi's team burst. "Hold it right there. What did you just call him? Did I just hear Naruto?" It was as if something had finally clicked into place in the big doe eyes she had. I looked over at her, lifting an eyebrow, opening my mouth to speak, about to confirm that yes, my name was Naruto, and ask what her name was, when suddenly I found myself tackled by her petite frame. With all the pink hair in my face and a smell of vanilla, medication and dirt, I was suddenly brought to the past of a young pink-headed girl getting bullied by a bunch of girls and myself chasing them away after finding both arms functioning. Out of shock and familiarity, I hugged her back. "Sakura." Sakura's POV. The machines in my head spun while I hugged my knight who saved me that day. I'd been dreaming of meeting him again since that day, and even when they said he left the village and could possibly be dead, I couldn't believe it. Reluctantly, I released him from my hug and stepped away far enough. I know it was unreasonable to just hug a stranger that you only met once before and only met now again, but I just had to make sure I wasn't having one of those stupidly realistic fantasies again. Him and Ino were my 2 childhood saviors who lead me to the path of being a ninja. The giddiness bubbled up at the pit of my stomach, especially since he remembered my name. "Hey Ugly, if you would stop hugging a stranger, maybe we could finally get some answers from him," Sai said with that fake smile of his, and I flushed and turned towards him. Not only because once again he called me ugly, but because I shyly glanced at Naruto from the corner of my eye as he was watching us with those eyes. Sai was such a jerk, and so was Sasuke. How she got stuck with those 2 was beyond her, and honestly she really didn't see what Ino saw in Sasuke and Sai. "Look Sai, I was going to ask questions, okay, unless you would like to do so in my stead? Sasuke? Would you like to add your opinion too? Because I'd just love to hear your thoughts on this matter." No response, huh? Good. I smiled sweetly at them. I was training under Tsunade after all, plus they knew firsthand how annoyed I could get. Suddenly I could feel a heavy gaze on my back and I sweat dropped. How could I forget Naruto? I smiled sheepishly when I turned to my knight. Looking him over, his eyebrows frowned a little and his eyes looked curiously at me and my teammates. He had the cutest frown on his face and the most wildest hair I've seen, even wilder than my one friend Kiba, and black and red streaks. Offhandedly I took note that he no longer had those whisker marks, and honestly I didn't know if it made him more handsome with them or without them. "You still have it," he said, making me confused until I followed his gaze down to the purple string that was a little thicker than a ninja wire yet thinner than a rope. I wore it on my skirt, through one of the loops. My mouth formed an O and pink dusted across my face, lightly nodding a little. I watched as his mouth twitched up a little. "Ahem. Anyway, my team would like to know what's going on and why you helping us. Even more so now that we know who you are and since you have been missing for so long," I asked, seeking his eyes for answers for a moment. After mentioning missing, his face went completely black without emotion, and despite my curiosity I decided not to mention it soon again. "I'm doing a favor for a friend of mine. We need to take Zabuza and his apprentice back to her," he told me, and I understood immediately by his tone that clearly the information he gave me was not all there was, but I wasn't gonna press for more than I could get. I nodded, bouncing my head up and down. "We'll look after you while you here," he said as an afterthought, glancing back down at the purple string, and I tilted my head a little up to him. He was a bit taller than Sasuke and he was taller than me. Normal Pav. That seemed like the end of the conversation between them as Naruto turned towards Akari. The two seemed to have a conversation with their eyes for a few moments before Naruto abruptly walked out, with Akari trailing behind, glancing at them once more before leaving the house after the glow-eyed boy. Team 7 decided to go check up on their sensei, finding him stirring occasionally before waking up. They stood beside his bed waiting nervously until he finally cracked one eye open. "What happened? Where are we?" Kakashi asked his nervous students, and Sakura stepped up to explain but was cut off by the door opening, revealing Akari and Naruto walking in. Slowly Kakashi sat up in the bed. Akari rushed to help him but was cut off by Naruto grabbing her hand and pulling her back while shaking his head. Kakashi narrowed his one eye that wasn't covered. "It's been a while." Kakashi ni. "Elsewhere, damn it, that shrimp. I'm so gonna get him back. How could he put me on scouting duty?" The dark-headed boy muttered under his breath before going silent when he ducked into the branches of a tree outside Gato's hideout. Watching for about an hour, he judged the times the guards changed shifts and made note of all the details surrounding the hideout after scouting the area. Sending his chakra out to sense for other shinobi, he confirmed that the only ones working for Gato were Zabuza and the fake hunter Nin. Slipping down behind a single henchman, he knocked the man out and worked on hitting and binding him to a tree high up before hanging into the exact replica of the man and turning to the base, saying that he forgot something under the man's disguise. The guards laughed at him and let him pass. The first thing Kurosuke did was duck into the shadows, silently memorizing the layout of the base, finding where everything and everyone is. As he came across the room that Zabuza and his accomplice was, he paused, silently eavesdropping on the conversation. "Ot, touch Zabuza-sama or I will break every bone in your hands." Snap. "Fuck. You bitch. Just you wait and see." The door slammed open and a short, ratty-looking man wobbled out with his guards flanking his sides. He cradled his right hand, cursing all the way down the hall about lousy Missy be punished. Kurosuke rolled his eyes. "That's what happens when you piss of a ninja, you fucker," he thought. Turning his focus back to the occupants of the room, he continued to listen to his targets for any useful information. "Haku. You didn't have to do that, I can take care of myself." Zabuza's gruff voice echoed in the room. "So her name's Haku Eh?" The dark-headed boy quickly silenced his thoughts to listen further for information. I'm sorry, Zabuza-sama, it will not happen again. How are you feeling?" "I did my best to wrap your wounds up," her soft voice asked gently. "I'm fine. What's really bothering me though is those brats that just appeared out of nowhere. Especially the glow-eyed one. Why do they need me? They better not be bounty hunters or anything like that." "Zabuza-sama, I think I can feel someone watching us. Come out." "What do you wait a minute, you're one of those fucking brats. Come to finish me off already, where's the glow-eyed bastard?" Zabuza said dangerously as the dark-headed boy shifted out of the shadows with an bored look on his face after dropping the illusion, while rolling his eyes for the second time for the day. Not that the two nins opposite him knew. "I'm not here to fight you guys, I'm sure that shrimp will kick my ass if I did. Before you ask the obvious, I am here to scout the place out. Apparently your employer rubs my friends the wrong way, me included. Now why don't we sit down for a nice little chat and play nice? So that I can save that glow-eyed bastard, as you call him, from coming all the way in this stinking place. He'll have a fit if he's seen half the things I just did from scouting the place out. So how about it? Kurosuke said, flashing them an easy-going grin. How can we trust you? Haku asked, voicing what Zabuza didn't want to while the both were on guard. The two of them eyed him cautiously, and he made no move to do anything at all but lean against the wall and yawned before another grin appeared as he settled into a relaxed but slightly guarded stance against the wall. You don't have to believe what I say, but once the shrimp gets a hold of you, he will force you to believe him in some way, either that or he will hold true to his word and drag you back home. He told them, and they glanced at each other before deciding to listen to what he said at least, and if they didn't like it, Haku would find a way to kill the fool. Fine, let's hear your story, boy. Tazuna's house. Naruto. Damn it, all of you leave, now. Kakashi snapped at his team and the red-headed girl who was with his long-lost sensei's son. Once they all left, his shoulders slumped. Naruto. Why? Do you know how much we've all missed you? Didn't it occur to you that maybe, just maybe, we'd miss you? Look, no hunt for you. Where did you go? How have you been? Damn it, answer me. Why? Because I was tired of being lied to and disregarded. I didn't expect you to miss me since you were rarely around me. I know Tsunade-ka-chan, Makoto-ka-chan, Katsume-ba-san, Itachi-ni, and the others I was around most of the time would miss me. You shouldn't have hunted or looked for me, and where I went is nobody's business but my own, also. Don't order me around and I've been perfectly fine. Naruto answered back, looking at the silver-headed man with a tightly controlled expression. Kakashi sighed softly. What was he supposed to say to all that? Listen, Naruto. I know it must have been hard, but your parents, he didn't even get a chance to complete his sentence before a massive amount of killing intent washed over him, making him choke back on his words. His eyes widened when he realized where that killing intent came from. Naruto stood as still and as stiff as a rod. His slightly glowing purple eyes darkened and glowed brighter. His lips was pulled back into a thin line and his face betrayed no emotion whatsoever. However, the slight twitch of his pinky finger spoke volumes, as did his icy cold eyes that seemed to burn with its gaze. Kakashi found himself shaking slightly and unable to swallow the lump that seemed to form in his throat. Hard. Kakashi, do you know what neglect means? Neglect means to ignore something. Ignore means to not care about something. Not caring about something means to not want something. Not wanting something means to throw that something away. Throwing that thing away means to break it. Breaking it means that it's useless. Useless means that it has no meaning at all. I was neglected, ignored, not cared for, unwanted, thrown away towards one side. I was broken and useless. I had no meaning anymore. The people at fault was my so-called family. The same people who are supposed to love, acknowledge, care for, want, keep, cherish, find useful, give meaning to, and for me. And yet, they did none of those things. They lied, manipulated, and forced other people, the people who actually care for me, to lie to me about my condition just when I thought no hope that my family was finally acknowledging me. What a fool I was. So get your words right. Hard and parents in one sentence isn't something anyone should say to me. Naruto told him with a cold but soft tone. It wasn't an angry shout or yelling. It was a silent yet burning anger that fluttered under the surface of a soft young boy who was a protege. The killing intent lifted and Naruto turned to leave the room. Kakashi set out to gather himself just as the door opened. Before Naruto walked out, he paused by the door as if contemplating something, and his tensed shoulders slowly relaxed themselves. I'll come see you later, Naruto murmured, and then the door closed slowly behind him. Sakura's POV. After Kakashi-sensei chased us out, we stood at the outside the room for a minute longer before following Naruto's friend down to the lounge. Akari, that's her name. She ordered us to let her check for any wounds. I already did that, but it doesn't matter much to me. Clearly she's much more skilled than I am, so I didn't mind. Akari-san. How do you? No, Naruto. Oh, you don't have to answer. I'm just curious, since he has been away for a long time and I really don't know him so well since I only met him once, twice if you count now. I rambled and the heat slowly rose to my face when she turned to look at me, her left eyebrow rising. Sakura-san, it's alright for me to call you that, right? I met Naruto when I was still young, like about 5 or 6 years old. If you're wondering, I met him before we met our other teammate, Kurosuke-kun. And if you don't mind me asking, how did you meet him? She replied, asking one of her own questions as she came to check me over. I flushed slightly, seeing as my teammates were also looking at me curiously. Well, you see, when I was younger I was always bullied, especially if my mother dropped off at the park so she can finish her shopping. The children liked to tease me about my forehead. One day during the afternoon my mother was running late to pick me up from the park and many of the older kids were bullying me and I was crying, until suddenly a blonde boy appeared and chased them away. I was surprised someone would do something like that for me. We ended up exchanging names and he gave me this purple rope wire. He said he used it as a bookmark but he'd give it to me. I only found out later on that he was the Hokage's son, and when I went to look for him I found out he already left along with what his family did to him. So here I am, years later, meeting one of my two saviors who made me decide to become a ninja. Who would have thought that my first C-ranked mission would end up leading me to meet one of the two people I first admired and still do? I told them my story and I saw Akari smile softly. The hardness in her posture relaxed once I told her this and she seemed more open than before. I think, out of all of us, the only one who doesn't know Naruto is Sai. I also know him from my childhood. We met through our parents. My mother is his mother's best friend, at least they used to be until my mother found out that they neglected their son. So my family is like his repbrother, thinks of him as his own brother. I guess I also thought of him like that in a way, but I was never close to him. I always thought of him as my rival in a way. I never did like his parents or sisters, they way too happy and chipper and loud. Sasuke spoke for the first time. Suddenly there was a blast of killing intent and it started suffocating us. The air suddenly became too thick to breathe. I collapsed in on myself, gasping for air. Next to me Sasuke was wide-eyed, clenching his fist and shaking slightly. On the other end I could see Sai sweating and shaking slightly as well. Images of my death flashed before my eyes. I can't breathe, I thought. I looked frantically around the room for help. Something or someone, please make it stop. Then I felt a hand on my shoulder and looked up, following the hand. That was attached to an arm, that was attached to a body. My eyes met calm forest green eyes and I felt all my panicking melt away and I calmed down slowly. My heart, which was previously thumping louder than a war drum against my ribs, slowed its pace back to its normal beat. Sakura-san. Calm yourself, you have nothing to fear. It will go away soon, don't worry about it. Naruto will never harm a person without a proper reason to do so. He must just be really angry at something or someone. It will pass, I promise. Akari spoke to me in a loud and clear voice that managed to shake both Sasuke and Sai out of their daze. Normal POV. With Kurosuke. After a long explanation of the mission that had been bestowed upon Team Naruto, Kurosuke waited patiently for them to come to a decision. Suddenly he felt as if something was wrong. Without a doubt he knew it was to do with his team, his family, not that he would actually admit it out loud to anyone. Right now he knew his senses were leaning towards Naruto. He was starting to get really irritated with the two before him since they seemed to be taking their own mighty time to come to a decision. Let's say we believe you and we go back to Mizu, what's to say we won't get attacked? Because according to you, we aren't getting escorted back by you because your leader and you are off to find something that just so happens to be in Konoha and there just so happens to be Konoha ninjas around who will take you back to their village. Boy, there are no things as coincidences, it's always a conspiracy because that's what the ninja world is all about. Zabuza told the younger male who was still leaning against the wall calmly. You right, we not escorting you home, our clones are, blood clones to be precise. Therefore those clones will make damn sure you are not attacked. And yes, we are looking for something in Konoha and we're going there anyway. The ninjas that are here were not expected on our part. Oh, and of course they going to take us back with them, especially since our shrimpy leader is the son of their beloved Hokage. Besides, this really wasn't a conspiracy on our part. Now do we have ourselves a deal? Because I really need to get going. The dark-haired boy said, looking at the Mizu ninja duo with serious eyes. We'll see. First I want to speak with your so-called leader and then we can give you a proper answer, but give us a few days if possible. The eyebrowless ninja grunted out. Kurosuke narrowed his eyes at them, searching for something before relaxing and nodding slowly, then grinning. We'll give you 2 days, no more, no less. I hope you choose carefully and correctly because Naruto is not someone to be crossed and we won't allow such a thing again. I'll be sure to set up a meeting between the two of you. For now though I need to go. Later. And with his last parting words to the duo, Kurosuke melted into the shadow of the room before they could no longer feel his presence in the room, or the building for that matter. Haku released a breath she didn't know she was holding. "Zabuza-sama?" she asked, looking at her master who had become like a father figure to her. He looked troubled and in thought. She couldn't feel the mysterious Kurosuke anywhere in the area, at all. It was as if he just vanished into thin air. Mentally she wanted to believe what the ninja told them, but if she easily believed that, then what type of tool would she be to so easily be swayed by the unknown? Because that's just what the three mysterious ninja were, and the unknown is not good because not knowing can get you killed. "Haku, we will meet with that brat who has my sword, by then we will know what we want to do. Until then, do not breath a word of this to anyone and carry on as if we never spoke to that black-haired brat, but be on guard. We know nothing about any of them yet, they seem well acquainted with us by now. We have first-hand experience with how bad things can get if we walk into this blindly," Zabuza told his apprentice. On the outside he knew he could seem cold, uncaring and insane, but inside his heart of hearts he cared more than he let on, especially about his young minion who he secretly became to see as a daughter, but he wasn't going to admit any time soon. "Hi, I understand, Zabuza-sama. Can I change your bandages now?" Haku asked, tilting her head to the side slightly, while sliding her mask off, which she had on the entire time that Gato and then Kurosuke was there. Zabuza grunted and allowed her to change the bandages and replace them with clean ones. They could only prepare for the coming meeting, which may or may not turn into a battle, and that was something Zabuza didn't really want, not with his already injured body. His sword was also in the hands of that brat with the multicolored hair. Who in their right minds has multiple hair colors anyway? Zabuza couldn't help but think. What an eyesore, now all he needs is an orange jumpsuit. Screaming believe it at the top of his lungs. "HN. If the boy can take on a Junin like myself, I really do want to leave Haku to fight any one of them. Ninjas always have something up their sleeves, and I'm a little skeptical on finding out just what that something is, and worse, if they're telling the truth it means that they socialize with Mei, of all people." A shiver went down his spine. Far off in Mizu, a certain brunette with green eyes sneezed before narrowing her gaze on the stacks of paperwork. "Someone's thinking about me. And it's not my favorite blonde. Akari's Pav." I sighed softly, staring out at the surrounding forest. The trees were damp from the morning dew, and so was the grass. I inhaled deeply and took out 2 fans. It was small ones with gold, black, red and green designs on it. My hands clutched at the individual fans in either hand. I need time to think, seriously, about things, especially after celebrating Naruto's birthday last night. I let my body move in familiar movements that was engraved in my body, heart and soul. I knew that outwardly I looked as if I could take on the world, but that was just a protective barrier that was created over the years of hard work, blood, sweat and lots of tears. Mito-sensei would be proud of me right now, I thought to myself as I started spinning gracefully while I thought of the past and the present. Flashback. A red-haired girl bounced up and down on the balls of her feet while looking over at the older woman before her. Today she was going to start her own training under the other redhead. Yesterday it had been her 2 friends, Naruto and Kurosuke. She had tried asking them about their training, but they were tight-lipped and downright refused to talk about it. She had to wonder why their faces were all red and couldn't look her in her eyes. Mito, other older redhead, cleared her throat, and instantly the younger girl paid attention, waiting to absorb any and all information given to her. "Akari." The woman paused for a moment before continuing. "Before I start physically training you, I need to train you mentally and emotionally. You need to be as composed and intelligent for the path that you follow. I sense a great deal of hardship coming your way, and I'm never wrong with these things." Mito eyed her female student with hard eyes. She needed to be capable to carry both her friends back from the brink of hell if it came to that, worst-case scenario, death. "Yes, Mito-sensei." Akari chimed with smile on her face, that was slowly wiped off when Mito started to train her in etiquette. However, not only the everyday etiquette, but the other ones too, including being a lady of the court. Things were only going to get harder from then on out, but Akari didn't know that. Only Mito did, but the younger red-headed girl would soon learn. End of flashback. Sitting down slowly and elegantly on the ground, I slid into a meditating trance, my thoughts sliding on to my dark-haired friend who had almost died at one point in time. Flashback. Everywhere you looked it was chaos. Ninja fighting ninja. A young red-haired girl stood back to back with a young black-haired boy who was slightly taller than her. Both were beaten up and bloody. The young boy favored his right leg over his left. Taking a closer look, you could see the bones sticking out in the wrong place. He was cut up and muddy too, the mud going into his deeper gashes and cuts, stopping the blood. The red-haired girl flinched visibly. Her left side was cut in deeply under her rib cage while her stomach had a small hole. She too was cut up and muddy. Their enemies surrounded them. There had been a spy in their ranks who had told their opposition who was going to be assigned to which district. It was a bloodbath. The army that had waited for them in this district was far exceeding the amount that was first there before they had called for backup, seeing as the spy told the ones they were fighting against their strategy. Therefore they were currently surrounded by even more people they started with, many of their comrades dead around them. Listen, Akari. The dark-haired boy started glancing around them as the enemy was closing in on them. I want you to go and find Naruto. Help him, The boy's golden eyes darkened into molten gold in anger. He needs you to stop them from tormenting and hurting him. I can feel it, he is in so much of pain. Go get him out of there and then come back for me, that is, if I'm still alive. Behind him the red-headed girl shook and started to plead with him, trying to find another way, but the boy shook his head. Do it, damn it, trust me, I'll be fine. Mito-sensei did teach us after all. He needs help and fast, as in now. So go. Go. He yelled at her and she swallowed thickly before nodding and sprinting away as fast as she could over and around the incoming ninja, when they tried to attack her by not letting her leave. Luckily for her, she was flexible and got away. Kurosuke-kun. She yelled inwardly, when she heard a pained scream. She forced herself to move to her other friend who was being tortured and beaten. An hour later, she had managed to get the bloody form of her best friend out of the hole they kept him in. She massacred all of them after seeing her friend and how badly he knew how horrible he looked. She found a spot to hide him away while she went for her other friend. She would try her best to heal them both with what little chakra she had left. Stopping at the district, she saw every last one of the people who came to fight in the district dead. She searched desperately for her other friend. Eventually she did find him, but his heart had already stopped. Judging by his chakra system, it stopped at least 10 minutes ago. However, that didn't stop her from pouring all her chakra into trying to get him alive with a beating heart. She cried and screamed. 3 swords stuck out of his abdomen, deeper gashes than when she had left him, 4 broken ribs, 2 pierced lungs, a broken arm and a broken leg. A kunai inches from his heart. She knew, she couldn't fix that, no one could. Please, please come back, don't leave us, come back. Come back. Come back, Kurosuke-kun. Don't go, please don't go. Come back to us. Kurosuke-kun. Don't. Akari bawled her eyes out over the still form of her friend's body. She had continued to pour every drop of chakra she had left into his body and trying to start his heart back up. Unknown to her until much later, the weapons behind her started glowing a soft green light. Her weapon and Kurasuke's, both were pulsing with chakra. Akari's vision blurred with black dots, and before she even knew it she passed out, as pale as a sheet on top of Kurosuke where there wasn't any weapons sticking out of him. When she became aware again, she was in what looked like a hospital. Glancing around her room, she caught sight of Kurosuke laying on the bed next to her, and her eyes widened. Jumping out the bed and ignoring her own injuries, she rushed to his side and started checking him over and fussing over the fact that his heart was beating again. She had almost pressed her ear against his chest to hear the beat. That is when Kurosuke woke up, to her softly fussing over him with concern. Akari. You're supposed to be resting. Stop it. Stop fussing over me, Kay. I'm alive. It's you who I should be worried about, the boy exclaimed, taking hold of both her hands to stop her from fussing any more than she was, and also for her to pay attention to what he just said and what he was going to say. What? Why? Your heart is the one that stopped beating, so she started protesting, forgetting any and all etiquette she was taught. However, he stopped her by his chilling words. Akari. My heart stopped beating for a few minutes, but you managed to bring me back. But you were dead for 2 days. End of flashback. My flashback abruptly ended when someone appeared and popped down in front of me. I blinked slowly when I opened my eyes, just to stare into golden eyes. Kurosuke-kun. I thought softly to myself. As if reading my thoughts, he grinned at me, and I raised an eyebrow at him and his smugness. Hey aka. Whatcha thinking about? It's me, isn't it? Taken by my charm yet? He chuckled, wiggling his eyebrows at me, and I found myself rolling my eyes. As if, what charm is he even talking about? I thought to myself, mentally snorting in disbelief. No, keep dreaming. I was thinking about how the meeting with Zabuza and Naruto was going. I wonder if he will decide to trust us and go home. I said outwardly. Inwardly I thought to myself, nice save Akari. I looked at him with all seriousness and he sagged under my gaze. Why yeah, ahem. So how's your project going so far? I heard you ask the shrimp for some seal work since there were so many to be done to make up what you're trying to do. He said, trying not to feel intimidated by my unnerving stare. I chuckled inwardly at his poor attempts to make conversation with me, not to say it wasn't working. Yes, well so far it's going as smooth as I expected, which is not all that easy. Naruto-kun did in fact help me with spamming out mass amounts of seals of the same type, seeing as although I'm an Uzumaki and have high chakra reserves, I could currently only make 20 at most, you know that. I needed about 30 more, to that 20, to make 50 so that I could focus on the core seal. This would be a medical breakthrough and Mito-sensei would be proud, since we had just started working on the theory before we left to find, you know what. I admitted to him, ending what I said on a softer note so that if anyone was listening in on our conversation they wouldn't be able to hear the last part. Kurosuke nodded seriously at me. He too had been helping me with my project that I had only recently started after having a solid foundation on the smallest details concerning all things medical. I noticed him getting bored and knew what was coming next. Well then, how about a MB? Just us though, seeing as the shrimp has yet to return. He asked with a mischief glint in his eyes and a small grin. I thought about for a little while and decided, why not? I nodded over to him and he grinned wider before suddenly looking thoughtful. Pierre SM? He asked, tilting his head to the side slightly. I let a small grin slip onto my face. AP? I stated and he smirked. We both closed our eyes into them. We were in our connected mindscape, only Naruto wasn't here with us. We would be having our MB with only the two of us, while on the outside our bodies were in AP, just in case there was an attack or something. MB, meaning mental or mind battle, and AP, meaning autopilot. SM, meant sleep mode, but we definitely couldn't go into that unless we knew we were definitely secure about our surroundings. Let the battle begin. Kurosuke shouted and I couldn't help but shout back that he was an idiot. Here, in our mentally shared space, is where I let my childlike personality go and just acted how I wished to act, impulsively, childlike and everything else. I never show my real ways in an unknown area or towards people I don't know really well. Sakura's POV. I sat comfortably on the sofa in the lounge of Tezuna's house, reading an old trapmaster's book I found back in one of Konoha's bookshops. It was all about the history of traps, how they came about, the basics you need to know before learning how to make them, the most simplest traps, more and more about traps. The bookstore something just called out to me when looking through the shelves for reading materials, aside from the medical textbooks. The more I read, the more I find myself fascinated and willing to learn about traps and how to make them. One line caught my eye in the book and I couldn't help but repeat it out loud as I closed the book, putting a bookmark in place. A master of his or her art must always be tactical, creative and knowledgeable about their limits. I murmured into the empty room. Standing up, I made my way to Kakashi-sensei's room to check up on him. He still refused to speak about Naruto to us. It kind of reminds me of the past when certain people did speak about one of my childhood saviors. Flashback. Why is it always coming down to Naruto? Have we not apologized over and over again? Sure, we knew what we were doing, and didn't expect him to run away because of us, but all people do nowadays is talk about him. Oh Naruto-chan, what a poor boy. Oh Naruto-kun, what terrible siblings to have. Oh poor Naruto, always suffering from his sister's bad deeds. Oh. The young red-haired, blonde-streaked girl was cut off by a sudden slap to her face. The hand which did such a thing belonged to none other than a furious pink-haired girl with emerald eyes. I might have only met Naruto-kun once, but he is a kind and caring person, so stop talking about him like he's the cause of all your problems. You caused your own problems, so deal with them properly. Honestly, I don't know how he managed to put up with the two of you at all. It must have been a living nightmare. Sakura yelled at the other girl. They were in their second to last year of the academy and Sakura was already having a bad enough day as it was. End of flashback. Cha. She deserved that. How dare she talk about poor Naruto-kun like that? I can't believe we got into trouble for doing the right thing. Stupid Iruka-sensei. Inner Sakura yelled out loud in my head and I felt the start of a headache. Inner Sakura was born that day I let my temper get the better of me and ended up in trouble. Inner. We can't be rude to our superiors like that. We'd have only got into more trouble than we were in at that time. I thought quietly back to her. She was everything I couldn't be. She was self-motivated, dangerous and none-fearing. She is like a separate person from me, always listening to me in the background of my mind. Whatever. At least now we can befriend Naruto-kun. We've waited so long to truly learn what type of person he is from personal experience. So you better grab the chance thrown at you. Oh, and talking about that. Here he comes. Good luck, Outer, she said cheerfully before leaving me to myself. However, I couldn't help but wonder how she felt him before I did, so I filed that for a later thing to look into. Hey Naruto-kun. You back already? I thought you were going to be longer. Well, at least Kurosuke said you might. I said, smiling over to him, and he sent me a large smile back before it faded and a frown to its place. Sakura, what are your goals in life? He asked so suddenly, making me look at him in confusion. Before I could answer, he shook his head and walked out, telling me to forget what he just said. Well, that was certainly weird, Inner said, appearing again out of nowhere. I shook my own head to clear up my confusion. I shrugged and decided to continue reading again from where I'd left off. Akari's Pav. The mind battle ended in a tie between Kurosuke and I. For once we sat silently next to each other without the peace being broken. That's when Naruto dropped down next to us, well, next to me, therefore making me the middle person. I could easily tell that something was bothering him, and I knew Kurosuke could too. How did the talk go with Zabuza and Haku? I asked softly, not wanting to break the tranquility we set up. I glanced at him from the corner of my left eye. He shifted slightly, before he settled down into a more relaxed state. If you're asking, did they agree to go back home, then yes. They're actually leaving sometime tonight, and I said I'll send a clone with them. Naruto replied equally softly. It seemed as if things were going well for us, and he too didn't want to break our moment together. I still, however, felt like there was something wrong with him. Then what's up with your aura? You feel a bit off, Kurosuke said. He too didn't speak loud enough to break the moment. I heard Naruto sigh next to me and a smile graced my face. I knew what he was going to say next before he even said it. Yeah, the two of you know me too well, perhaps we need to separate or something. He muttered, while Kurosuke and I chuckled, before he continued on. But, yes, something is bothering me. It's been bothering me for a while now. I keep on thinking, what are my goals in life? Am I doing the right thing? What am I truly getting stronger for? What is my real purpose of living? These are the things that have been bugging me since I decided to leave Kiri. I mean, we could have easily stayed back there and had a wonderful life, and yet here we are, looking for Mito-sensei, even though she said we don't have to if we decide not to. Then meeting Kakashi Ni and having him tell me about that supposed family and how they were looking for me. Guys, what am I missing? Naruto explained quietly, and I turned towards him, looking at him seriously. Listen, Naruto-kun. If you are unsure of your life goals at the moment, don't worry, they will soon be sorted out as we go along. Are we doing the right thing? I don't know, but what I do know is that you want to prove to your shitty, excuse my language, their family, that you are better off without them. You said so yourself when you decided against getting revenge, but instead having them constantly mourn their loss of you. You're getting stronger for yourself and for those who care for you, for the Uzumaki clan, because you're the heir to their throne. Everyone has a purpose in life, and we will all eventually find it. I also get what you're saying with living in Kiri, but we wanted to continue training under Mito-sensei. We want her alive again, and we needed to find the Uzumaki weapons. Naruto-kun, you are not missing anything, so stop being so confused and worried over nothing, I said strongly, meaning every word said. Kurosuke turned to face Naruto on my side and snorted. You know, for a shrimp you think too much. One day your head is going to explode. Ha ha ha. Kurosuke joked. Meanwhile, Naruto finally settled on an expression to wear, and it was one of irritation. Anyway, Pipsqueak. What's next on our agenda? And the seal too. When are we finishing it up? Kurosuke asked, standing up and offering me his hand without thinking, his own etiquette lessons kicking in. Once I took his hand, we were all standing and Naruto turned towards us. I'm just going to ignore your insult this time because I'm the bigger man here. So anyway, next we go back to Konoha, we train, complete our individual projects and gather allies. The seal is almost fail-safes and precautions, then we sorted for testing. Naruto said, sending me a proud look. My face flushed with pride and I smiled back at him. Thanks for helping me out with drawing out the copies of the rings. I hope I could learn something new at Konoha Hospital and their ninja medical system, I stated, sending them a meaningful look. They nodded back seriously. The situation was not pleasant, at least not for Naruto. Kurosuke and I could be pretty indifferent towards the place that birthed our dear friend, but one wrong move and they history. We are not going to play around with useless people. We going there for one thing and one thing only. 3 days later. Konoha Normal Pav. The Hokage sat stock still behind his desk, the letter in his hands laying limply. Minato Namikaze was stuck between two emotions, happiness and sadness. Hokage-sama, Squad 7 had run into the Demon Brothers on our mission to Wave. Things started getting out of control when we decided to continue onwards, even though, knowing there would possibly be worse enemies coming after the bridge builder and his family. We were right and encountered Zabuza Momochi, a missing nin from Kiri. Just as I was about to lose the battle, a stranger stepped in, 2 others following him. The stranger had messy blonde hair along with black and red highlights. He looked no older than my own squad. He had glowing purple eyes and was slightly tan. The other 2 strangers were a male and a female. The male had black messy hair and golden eyes, while the female had long red hair and forest green eyes. The first stranger then went about playing around with Momochi. It was hardly a battle, they fought and he won, taking the sword as his prize. After that I had been unconscious. When I came to, I found myself healed by a professional medical ninja, who just so happened to be the redhead, who I later learned went by the name Akari Uzumaki. The young girl took care of me until the blonde came to see me. That's when I realized who the stranger was. Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze, who has been missing for the past 6 years, has been found. He however refused to be associated with the Namikaze in any way, calling himself Naruto Uzumaki. His teammate with the black hair going by the name Kurosuke, surname unknown for now. They have expressed an interest in going to Konoha, to study and complete whatever they were training in. Awaiting your orders, Kakashi Hitaki, Junin of Konoha, sensei of Team 7. Minato covered his face, not knowing what to do. His father instinct told him to jump for joy and gladly accept his son back. However, his Hokage instinct told him to be cautious, and that made him weary of his own son, thus bringing on the shame he felt for feeling like that and even pain for his past decisions. Namikaze Compound. Sayuki and Natsumi were playing hide and seek in the house when Natsumi accidentally hid in the only room that was more off limits than her dad's office, her brother's room. At first she felt scared she would get into trouble, but then she felt curious and forgot all about the game she had been playing with her best friend. Oni-san's room. She whispered softly, and looked around. The room was as plain as it got, not fancy like hers or her sister's. It was kind of sad and lonely. She walked forward towards the bed and touched the covers. They were clean and dust-free. Natsumi found herself drawn to the bookshelf and read as many of the books she could understand. However, she still couldn't read some of the titles correctly. Natsumi walked to the cupboard and slowly opened it up and peeked, and finding some clothes in there, she reached out and tugged on one of the shirts, pulling it off the hanger and into her waiting arms. She hesitated at first, but soon brought the article of clothing to her face and felt how soft it was. Just then she felt her mother's chakra and quickly closed the cupboard and left the room, running to her own and hiding the shirt beneath all her clothes. She pretended to be caught by Sayuki and laughed, but she felt nervous of her mother finding out where exactly she had hid. 2 weeks later, the village gates were wide open and waiting for travelers and ninja returning from missions. The gate guards yawned. Nothing exciting ever happened around there, so they naturally lazed around. Azumo and Katetsu were the guards normally, but this time they were out on a mission, leaving Aoba and Hidaiki as the guards for the time being. In a distance, the two noticed a group of 7 people coming their way. They instantly recognized Kakashi, Sakura and Sasuke, and by extension Sai. However, they did not recognize the other 3 trailing them. Good morning, Aoba-kun, Hidaiki-kun. We, Team 7 and I, have just returned from our C-rank mission and would like to sign in. Oh, and those 3 are with us, Kakashi said, giving the gate guard's eye smile. The 2 nodded, smiling back, and proceeded to sign all of them in. Once Kakashi and his team were signed in, the other 3 had to sign in as well. Names, surnames and ages, Aoba asked, writing on his clipboard. It was standard procedure for guests, travelers and ninja, to sign in to the village they want entrance to. Very village did it, and Konoha was no exception. However, as per normal, the gate guards were always on autopilot when writing down the names, since they have to do it regularly. Therefore Aoba didn't actually register their names properly as he was writing them down. Kurosuke Katsuno, 13. The dark-haired boy said boredly as he took in the view of the village from the gates. He took in the scenery with a grain of salt and basically ignored everything else. Kurosuke made note, however, that the fourth ugly face engraved onto the mountain belonged to the asshole known as Naruto's father. Akari Uzumaki, 13. The only female between them stated as she took in the sights laying before her. Her sharp eyes took in every single detail of the surrounding areas, her eyes not missing anything. Akari knew that she would end up at the library after their dreaded talks with the Hokage. Naruto Uzumaki, 13. The only purple-eyed boy grumbled. He was still upset with the fact that he was already called a shrimp and a pipsqueak, even though he was the same height as Kurosuke, but it was worse since he was also the youngest between them as well. After all, he had just celebrated his birthday give or take, 2 weeks ago. He knew all he needed to do was glance over the village once and he would already have it mapped out, which is why he didn't pay attention to it at the moment. Alright, you guys are all ready. Go ahead and welcome. Aoba said, finishing up on the clipboard, and let them all go ahead. Hideki, however, looked shocked and confused. Aoba turned to him. Huh? Hideki, what's wrong? He questioned curiously, sitting down again. Aoba. That boy just now, was Hokage-sama's son, Hideki said, looking at Aoba with wide eyes. Aoba, who was drinking water, almost choked, spitting it all out in front of him. What, with Naruto and company, so this is Konoha? A bit interesting if you ask me. Kurosuke said as they walked up the stairs to the Hokage tower while looking out the windows. Akari hummed in acknowledgement and also looked around a bit. Naruto, however, was looking slightly more blank and emotionless the closer they came to the cage's office. Knock knock, come in. A voice yelled from inside the office when they arrived outside the office after Kakashi knocked. They group walked in and 2 pairs of eyes immediately locked, a pair of cobalt blue locked with a pair of glowing violet. The temperature dropped several degrees in the room and a chill went down everyone's spine. Kurosuke and Akari had only ever seen Naruto like this a handful of times, and it always made them feel both scared and protected at the same time. Team 7, however, was feeling it for the first time, and this made their heartbeats pick up. Naruto. Minato said softly, looking into his son's eyes and feeling his growth. Hokage-sama. Naruto spat, emotions going out of control before settling on one that would use actions today. Indifference. The end. Remember to subscribe and like this video. See you in the next video.